Jack Mercer had spent the last 15 years investigating other people's disasters for an insurance company. Fires, floods, fraudulent claims filed by desperate people trying to claw back something from lives that had already fallen apart. He had learned to read damage the way some men read books. A charred wall told him where the accelerant started. A water stain revealed when the pipe burst. The truth was always there in the wreckage if you knew where to look. Now, at 50 years old, sitting at his kitchen table in a Chicago apartment that had never quite felt like home, Jack was looking at his own wreckage and trying to find the truth in it. The divorce papers sat next to his coffee cup. Finalized 18 months ago, but he still pulled them out sometimes, reading through the custody arrangements like he might find some loophole he had missed. Tyler every other weekend, alternating holidays. Summer split down the middle like a piece of property being divided. His son had become a schedule, a calendar entry, a negotiation between lawyers who billed by the minute. The apartment was half-packed, boxes stacked against walls, furniture covered in that particular kind of dust that accumulates when you stop caring about the small things. Jack had given notice at work 3 weeks ago. 15 years at Midwest Mutual Insurance, and his boss had barely looked up when Jack submitted his resignation letter. They would replace him with someone younger, someone who still believed that truth mattered in a world built on lies and half-truths and carefully worded denials. The phone call had come on a Tuesday. That detail stuck with Jack for some reason. Tuesday afternoon, February cold pressing against the windows, the kind of gray Chicago day that made you forget the sun existed. A lawyer from Wyoming, Powder River Basin, a place Jack had only heard about in old Western movies and half-remembered geography lessons from high school. Your grandfather has passed away. Natural causes. Died in his sleep at age 87. There would be no service. Buck Mercer had made that clear in his will. No mourners gathering to speak comfortable lies about a man they barely knew. Just a burial in the family plot on the ranch property, and then the business of inheritance. 850 acres in Wyoming. The main house, a barn, various outbuildings in states of repair ranging from functional to collapsed. Water rights to a creek that ran through the northern section. Mineral rights that might or might not be worth anything depending on what the geological surveys said. And one condition that changed everything. You must live on the property for a minimum of 6 months to claim full ownership. If you choose not to accept these terms, the property will revert to the state of Wyoming. Jack had met his grandfather exactly 3 times. Once at his own father's funeral when Jack was 8. Once at a cousin's wedding when Jack was 19. Once more when Jack was 25 and had driven out to Wyoming with his new wife, full of hope and plans for the future, wanting to show her where his family came from. That visit had lasted exactly 45 minutes before Buck had made it clear they were not welcome to stay. The old man had been hard, not cruel but carved from something that did not bend. A Marine who had served in Vietnam and come home carrying things he never spoke about. A rancher who had worked land that did not forgive mistakes. A man who had looked at Jack across a kitchen table not unlike this one and said, "You have soft hands, boy. City hands. This place would eat you alive." Jack had left angry. Had not called, had not written. Had let 30 years pass in silence broken only by an occasional Christmas card that Buck never answered. And now the old man was dead and had left everything to the grandson with soft hands and a broken life. Tyler was in his room. Jack could hear the faint sound of a video game through the thin walls. 11 years old and already learning to retreat from the world. The divorce had hit him hard. The custody battle had hit him harder. Watching his parents turn into strangers who communicated through lawyers and measured out love in court-approved increments had done something to the boy. He had been outgoing once, quick to smile. Now he read books at the dinner table and answered questions with shrugs and gave nothing away in his eyes. Jack knocked on the door frame. Tyler looked up from his phone, earbuds dangling. He had Sarah's eyes, his mother's eyes. That hurt more than Jack wanted to admit. "Hey buddy, can we talk?" Tyler pulled out the earbuds but did not sit up, waited. Jack sat on the edge of the bed. "Remember I told you about my grandfather, the one who had a ranch out west?" "The mean one." Jack smiled despite himself. "Your mom said that. She said you never talked about him because he was mean to you." Jack thought about that visit 30 years ago. Thought about Buck's weathered face and eyes that had seen things Jack could not imagine. Thought about the way the old man had looked at Sarah, at her designer clothes and her discomfort with the emptiness of the landscape, and had simply said, "This is not a place for everyone." He wasn't mean, he was just hard, different. He died a few weeks ago. Tyler's expression did not change. Death was still an abstract thing at 11, something that happened to grandparents you had never met. "He left us his ranch, all of it, 850 acres in Wyoming." Now Tyler sat up, "Like with cows and stuff." "Maybe, I don't know what condition it's in. The lawyer said nobody has worked it in years, but there's a house, land, mountains, space." "Are we going to visit it?" Jack took a breath. This was the moment, the choice that would determine what came next for both of them. "I'm thinking maybe we could do more than visit. Maybe we could try living there for a while. 6 months at least. That's what the will says I have to do to inherit it." Tyler processed this. "What about school?" "I could homeschool you, or there's probably a school in the nearest town." "What about Mom?" And there it was, the question that mattered most. "I talked to her lawyer. Your mom agreed you could come with me. She said maybe a change would be good for you. She'll come visit. You'll go back to see her on holidays. But if we do this, if we really do this, it means leaving Chicago, leaving everything we know." Tyler looked around his room, looked at the posters on the walls, the gaming setup, the life he had built in this small space. Then he looked at Jack and asked the question that broke something loose in Jack's chest. "Do you want to go?" Jack thought about the insurance office, the apartment that smelled like failure, the weekends when Tyler came to visit and they ran out of things to say to each other after 2 hours, the way he had started drinking at night just to make the silence more bearable, the way he had looked in the mirror that morning and seen his father staring back, a man who had died at 52 from a heart attack brought on by stress and disappointment and dreams that had curdled into regrets. "Yeah," Jack said. "Yeah, I think I really do." Tyler nodded. "Okay, let's go." It took 2 weeks to pack up their lives. 2 weeks to close accounts and cancel utilities and fill out change of address forms. Sarah had been surprisingly supportive. Maybe she saw what Jack saw when he looked at Tyler. Maybe she was just tired of fighting. Either way, she had signed the papers that allowed Tyler to leave the state and had wished them luck with something that might have been sincerity. They left Chicago on a Tuesday morning, loaded up Jack's pickup truck with everything they could not leave behind. Clothes and books and a few pieces of furniture that had sentimental value Sarah had not wanted in the settlement. Jack had sold or given away the rest. Starting over meant traveling light. The drive west took 2 days. They could have pushed through in one long haul, but Jack wanted Tyler to see the transition. Wanted him to watch the city give way to suburbs, the suburbs give way to farmland, the farmland give way to plains that stretched to horizons so distant they seemed like something from another planet. Tyler sat in the passenger seat with his earbuds in for the first few hours. Somewhere around Iowa, when the landscape opened up into endless fields of winter wheat stubble, and the sky grew wider than any sky had a right to be, he pulled them out and started watching through the window. "It's really empty," Tyler said. Yeah, not many people want to live out here anymore. Why not? Jack thought about that. It's hard. The weather can kill you. The work is brutal. You're far from hospitals, far from stores, far from everything that makes life easy. Most people, they want easy. Do you want easy? Jack glanced at his son. I used to think I did. Turned out I was wrong. They stopped for the night in a motel outside Cheyenne. Ate dinner at a truck stop where the coffee was strong and the portions were huge, and the waitress called them both honey without a trace of irony. Tyler ordered a burger bigger than his head and actually finished it. Jack could not remember the last time he had seen his son eat with real appetite. That night, lying in the motel bed with Tyler asleep in the twin next to him, Jack pulled out his phone and looked up Powder River Basin on the map. Found Red Creek, the nearest town to the ranch. Population 2,100, one main street, a hardware store, a cafe, a gas station. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone and strangers were noticed. The ranch itself was marked on the satellite view. Jack zoomed in, trying to see details. The main house looked intact from above. The barn was clearly damaged, roof collapsed on one side. There were what looked like livestock pens and a few smaller structures scattered across the property. A dirt road led in from the county highway, 2 miles of washboard that probably turned to mud in spring. Jack's grandfather had lived there alone for decades. No hired help according to the lawyer. Just one old man and 850 acres, and whatever ghosts he carried from Vietnam and from the life he had built and lost. The lawyer had mentioned that Buck had died in his sleep. Natural causes. But something about the way the man had said it made Jack wonder what natural meant for someone like Buck Mercer. Whether a man could die of old age, or whether eventually the things you carried just got too heavy and pulled you down into the dark. They crossed into Wyoming the next morning. The landscape changed. Mountains appeared in the distance, still snow-covered in early March. The plains here were different from Iowa, wilder somehow, touched by wind that came straight off the Rockies and carried the smell of sage and space. Tyler had given up on the earbuds entirely. He pressed his face to the window and watched everything pass. Dad, are there still cowboys out here? Some, ranchers anyway, people who work cattle. Will we have cattle? I don't know what we'll have, buddy. Guess we'll find out together. The turn off to the ranch was marked by a leaning mailbox with Mercer painted on the side in faded letters. Jack almost missed it. The dirt road led north, climbing gradually through rolling country covered in brown grass and patches of snow. They passed no other houses. No signs of human habitation beyond a few strands of barbed wire fence running parallel to the road. 2 miles in, the ranch came into view below them. Jack pulled the truck to a stop at the crest of the rise. Neither of them spoke for a long moment. The house was a 2-story structure built from local stone and weathered timber. It sat in a small valley with a creek running behind it, protected from the worst of the wind by a stand of cottonwood trees that had probably been planted 80 years ago. The roof looked solid. The windows were intact, but everything had that abandoned quality, that sense of a place waiting for people who might never return. The barn to the east was half collapsed, just like the satellite image had shown. The roof had caved in on the north side, probably from snow load or age or both. What remained looked skeletal, exposed beams like ribs against the sky. Cattle pens and corrals surrounded the barn area. The fences were still standing, but the gates hung at angles. Weeds had grown up through the spaces where livestock once gathered. An old equipment shed leaned dangerously to one side. But it was the setting that took Jack's breath away. The Wind River Mountains rose in the distance to the west, still heavy with snow. The creek glinted in the afternoon sun. The sky was so blue it hurt to look at, and so vast it made him feel simultaneously insignificant and somehow more real than he had felt in years. "That's it?" Tyler asked. "That's it. It looks haunted." Jack smiled. "Maybe it is." They drove down the dirt track to the house. Jack killed the engine and they sat for a moment in the sudden silence. No traffic noise. No sirens. No neighbors arguing through apartment walls. Just wind in the grass and the distant cry of a hawk and the settling sounds of the truck engine ticking as it cooled. "Kind of creepy," Tyler said, but there was something in his voice that was not entirely negative. "It's home now," Jack said. Then he wondered if that was true. Could a place you barely remembered become home again? Could you inherit belonging the way you inherited land? They climbed out of the truck. The wind hit them immediately, cold and persistent, carrying the smell of sage and something else, something wild and clean that Jack had no name for. Tyler walked toward the house, his shoes kicking up small puffs of dust from the hard-packed earth. Jack grabbed their overnight bags from the truck bed and followed. The front porch creaked under his weight, solid construction but tired. The boards needed replacing in spots. The railing wobbled when he touched it. Work to be done. A lifetime of work if he was honest. The front door was unlocked. It opened with a groan that sounded almost human. Inside, the air was stale and thick with dust. Afternoon light slanted through windows that probably had not been cleaned in a decade, illuminating particles that danced in the beams like snow. Furniture sat in the main room covered with white sheets that had gone gray with time. A massive stone fireplace dominated one wall, the kind of fireplace you could stand up in. The mantel was empty except for dust, and a single black and white photograph in a simple frame. Jack walked over and picked it up. Blue dust from the glass. A woman smiled up at him, young and beautiful, standing next to a man in marine dress blues. His grandfather, young himself, maybe 25, with the same hard eyes Jack remembered, but something else in his expression too. Something that might have been hope. "Is that him?" Tyler asked. "Yeah, and that's my grandmother. She died before I was born." "She's pretty." "Yeah, she was." Jack set the photograph back and moved through the house, pulling sheets off furniture. A couch that had seen better days but was still solid. A dining table made from what looked like a single piece of oak, scarred and worn but built to last generations. In the kitchen, an old cast iron stove sat next to a more modern propane range. Deep porcelain sink with a pump handle next to the regular faucet. This place had been built before electricity reached this far out, and it showed. Tyler explored upstairs while Jack tested the water. The pipes groaned and sputtered, coughing out rust-colored liquid that eventually ran clear. He tried the light switches. Nothing. The power had been shut off probably years ago. He would need to call about that tomorrow. "Dad, come look." Jack climbed the stairs. The steps were solid beneath his feet despite their age. Good construction. His grandfather might have had hard hands and a harder heart, but he had known how to build things that lasted. Tyler stood in one of the 4 bedrooms, looking out a window that faced west toward the mountains. "This one was yours, wasn't it?" Jack looked around. The room was smaller than he remembered, but then again he had been 8 years old the last time he stood here. Summer of 1982. His parents had dropped him off for 2 weeks while they took a trip to Europe. 2 weeks that had seemed like a lifetime. 2 weeks of learning to ride, learning to mend fence, learning that the world was bigger and harder and more beautiful than anything he had known in the suburbs of Chicago. "Yeah," Jack said, "this was mine." "Can I have it?" Jack felt something tighten in his chest. "You sure? It's not very big." "It's bigger than my room at Mom's, and look at the view." They stood together at the window, watching the mountains catch the last of the afternoon light. The peaks glowed orange and pink, colors that seemed impossible, like something from a painting. Jack put his hand on Tyler's shoulder and felt his son lean into the touch instead of pulling away. That was new. That was good. "It's yours," Jack said. Jack took the master bedroom for himself, his grandfather's room. The bed was made with military precision, corners tucked tight, blanket pulled so taut you could bounce a quarter on it. On the nightstand sat another photograph, this one more recent. Buck at maybe 70, standing with 3 other men in front of what looked like an old feedlot. All of them were smiling, squinting against bright sun. Ranch men with weathered faces and capable hands. Jack picked up the photograph and looked closer. There was something about it that bothered him, though he could not put his finger on what. The men looked happy, relaxed, friends enjoying a good day. But there was something in the background, something his eyes kept being drawn to. A smudge in the upper corner, probably just a flaw in the printing. He set it down and moved to the desk in the corner. An old roll-top, oak, probably worth a small fortune if he wanted to sell it. He tried to open it, but it was locked. The drawers were locked too. He filed that away as something to deal with later. Right now, he needed to figure out how to make this place livable for the night. They spent the next few hours making the house habitable. Jack got the water running properly after bleeding air from the pipes. He called the power company from his cell phone and arranged for reconnection the next day. They swept and dusted and pulled sheets off furniture and opened windows to let the March air clear out years of staleness. In a closet off the kitchen, Jack found candles and oil lamps, relics from the days before electricity but still functional. They would need them tonight. He showed Tyler how to light them safely, how to trim the wicks, how to never leave them unattended. Basic skills that the boy had never needed in the city but would need here. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of fire and gold, Jack made dinner on the old propane stove. Nothing fancy. Canned soup and bread. But it was hot and filling, and they ate at the kitchen table without phones or television or any of the usual distractions. Just father and son and the quiet settling sounds of the old house around them. "Dad," Tyler said between spoonfuls of soup, "why did we really come here?" Jack set down his spoon. His son deserved honesty. "Because I was tired. Tired of fighting your mom in court. Tired of the city. Tired of feeling like I was failing at everything that mattered. Grandpa Buck left me this place, and I thought maybe we could have a fresh start. Just you and me." Tyler considered this. "Are you still tired?" "A little less than I was yesterday." After dinner, Jack told Tyler to get ready for bed while he did a quick walk around the property. The sun was down now, the sky fading through purple into black. Stars were beginning to appear, more stars than Jack had ever seen. Out here, far from any city lights, the Milky Way was visible as a river of light across the sky. He walked past the collapsed barn, noting the charred wood. Fire damage, old but visible. Something had burned here once. He made a mental note to ask around town about the history. The livestock pens were more interesting. They were built solid, the kind of construction meant to last generations. But some of the fencing had been moved recently. He could tell. The wood was weathered, but the arrangement looked fresh. Posts that had been pulled up and reset. Gaps in the fence line that had not grown over with weeds. Jack crouched down, examining the dirt. There were boot prints, not his own. His were smooth-soled work boots. These had deep treads, the kind you saw on hiking boots or tactical footwear. Fresh, maybe a few days old. Near one fence post, he found cigarette butts. 3 of them filtered, lying in the dirt like someone had stood here for a while, smoking and watching. Jack stood slowly, scanning the property with new attention. The barn, the pens, the outbuildings, all of it supposedly abandoned for years, but someone had been here recently. Someone had been using this place. He walked toward a structure in the distance. A silo, tall and cylindrical, its metal skin rusted and pitted by decades of Wyoming weather. As he approached, the last rays of sunlight hit it at an angle, and Jack could have sworn he saw a light flicker in one of the high windows. He stopped, stared, but the light did not return. Probably just a reflection, he told himself. Just the sun playing tricks. But his grandfather's words echoed in his mind, words from that last brief phone call 15 years ago when Jack had called to announce Tyler's birth. A son is a blessing and a burden, Jack. Don't mess it up the way I did. What had Buck messed up? What had driven him to live alone out here for decades, speaking to no one, seeing no one, dying alone in this house with no one to mourn him? Jack returned to the house as full dark settled over the land. He checked on Tyler, found him already asleep in his new room, curled under blankets with a book fallen open on his chest. Jack picked up the book, marked the page, set it on the nightstand, pulled the blankets up to Tyler's chin and stood for a moment watching his son sleep. 11 years old and already carrying burdens no child should carry. The weight of a broken home. The uncertainty of a future that kept shifting under his feet. But out here, maybe that could change. Out here, maybe they both could learn to breathe again. Jack went to his own room, the master bedroom, his grandfather's room. He lay on top of the covers, fully clothed, staring at the ceiling and listening to the sounds of the old house settling. Wood creaking, wind whistling through gaps in the windows. Somewhere distant, an owl called. Then he heard it. Footsteps on gravel. Jack sat up, his heart suddenly hammering. He moved to the window, careful not to disturb the curtain. The yard below was dark, lit only by starlight, but as his eyes adjusted, he saw a shadow move near the barn. Definitely human, definitely not his imagination. He thought about the boot prints, the cigarette butts, the fresh fence work. Someone had been using this property. Someone who might not be happy that the rightful owners had returned. Jack grabbed his cell phone and moved downstairs as quietly as he could. At the front door he hesitated. What was he going to do? Confront an intruder in the dark? Call the sheriff in a town he had never visited? The footsteps stopped. Jack waited, barely breathing, listening so hard his ears rang. Then he heard the sound of a truck engine in the distance. Not close, maybe half a mile away. The sound faded, heading north across the property toward what must be a back road or neighboring land. Jack stood there for a long time, phone in hand, waiting for the sound to return. It did not. Eventually he locked the front door, something he had not thought to do earlier, and went back upstairs. Sleep was a long time coming. When it finally arrived, it was restless and filled with dreams. Dreams of fire and smoke. Dreams of his grandfather's face telling him to run. Dreams of Tyler crying out in the dark while Jack searched for him through an endless landscape of burned buildings and shadows that might be men or might be ghosts. In the morning, Jack woke to pale sunlight streaming through the window and the smell of coffee. For a moment he was confused. He had not set up a coffee maker, did not even know if there was one. But then he heard Tyler moving around downstairs and remembered the old percolator he had seen in the kitchen cupboard. His son was learning to be self-sufficient out here. That was something. Jack dressed quickly and headed downstairs. Tyler had indeed figured out the percolator and was sitting at the kitchen table with a bowl of cereal, reading a book he had brought from Chicago. The morning light streaming through the windows made everything look less threatening than it had in the night. "Morning," Jack said, pouring himself a cup of coffee. "Morning. Did you hear anything weird last night?" Jack paused mid-pour. "Like what?" "I don't know. Footsteps, maybe. I thought I heard someone walking around outside." So Tyler had heard it too. Jack decided not to lie. "Yeah, I heard it. Might have been an animal or someone from town checking on the place. Tyler did not look convinced, but he went back to his cereal. Jack sat across from him, sipping coffee that was surprisingly good, and made a mental list of what needed doing. The power company was coming today to restore electricity. He needed to survey the property more thoroughly, assess what could be salvaged and what was beyond repair. And he needed to drive into town, meet the neighbors, figure out who knew what about Buck Mercer and why someone might be watching this ranch. But first, before any of that, he needed to explore the house more carefully. His grandfather had lived here alone for decades. There had to be answers somewhere. Letters, papers, something that would explain the locked desk and the solitary life and the bootprints in the dirt. After breakfast, while Tyler settled in with his books and a math workbook for homeschool, Jack searched the house systematically. He went through closets and drawers, looking for anything that might be a key or a clue. In Buck's bedroom closet, he found the old Marine dress uniform, mothballed and preserved. Service ribbons Jack did not recognize. A box of medals that meant nothing to someone who had not served. In the attic, accessed by a pull-down ladder, he found old furniture and boxes of papers. Tax returns going back 40 years, bills marked paid, receipts for equipment and supplies, the mundane documentation of a life lived alone. But it was Tyler who found the first real clue. Jack was in the kitchen, trying to figure out which breaker controlled which circuits, when he heard his son call from the old bunkhouse behind the main house. "Dad, I found something." Jack grabbed his jacket and headed out. The bunkhouse was a long, low structure that had probably housed ranch hands back when the ranch was fully operational. He had glanced in yesterday but not explored it thoroughly. Tyler was inside now, kneeling by what looked like a built-in bunk bed frame. "What is it?" "Look," Tyler pointed to a floorboard that had clearly been pried up and replaced. The nails were new, bright against old wood. Jack knelt and worked the board loose. Underneath, in a hollow between the joists, lay a leather-bound journal. He pulled it out carefully. The leather was worn smooth, the kind of smoothness that came from being handled often. The pages were yellowed at the edges. Inside the front cover, written in neat block letters, "Robert Mercer, 1990. Jack flipped through the pages. Early entries were mundane. Weather observations, notes about cattle prices, reminders to repair a fence or rotate pastures. But as he moved forward through 1991, the tone changed. The entries became shorter, more tense, and then, starting in July, they became coded. July 12, 1991. MCTBRW agree. The H operation must end. We have proof. Going in Friday. July 18, 1991. Found evidence near old feedlot. Photos taken. H knows we know. Situation escalating. August 2, 1991. Confrontation today with H threatened our families. M wants to go to authorities. I said no. Authorities are bought. We handle this ourselves. August 6, 1991. Tomorrow night, all four of us. We get the evidence, we shut it down, we do what the law won't do. August 7, 1991. The page was torn out, ripped clean from the binding, leaving only a ragged edge. August 8, 1991. God forgive me. I wasn't fast enough. 3 good men dead because I hesitated. Should have killed him when I had the chance. MCTBRW gone, all gone. Fire took them. I heard them screaming. I will hear them screaming for the rest of my life. The rest of the journal was blank. Whatever had happened on August 7, 1991, it had been enough to make Buck Mercer stop writing entirely. Jack sat back on his heels, journal in hand, Tyler watching him with wide eyes. "Dad, what does it mean?" Jack thought about the coded initials. MC could be anyone. but the lawyer in town had mentioned that Buck had known a few local ranchers before he became reclusive, before 1991, before whatever happened that August. I think it means your great-grandfather was involved in something dangerous, something that went very wrong. Are we in danger? It was a child's question, but it deserved an honest answer. Jack thought about the footsteps last night, the boot prints, the fresh fence work. I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. They spent the afternoon making the house more secure. Jack checked all the locks, found a few that needed replacing. He brought in the bags from the truck, unpacked their clothes, made Tyler's room feel more like his own. When the power company arrived and restored electricity, the house suddenly felt more real. Lights worked. The refrigerator hummed to life. Tyler's room got heat from the baseboard units. But as the sun set again, painting the Wyoming sky in shades of orange and red, Jack felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down. Someone had been watching this place. Someone had been using it. And his grandfather's journal suggested that August 7, 1991 had been a turning point, a day when something terrible happened that Buck had spent the rest of his life trying to outrun or forget. Jack made dinner, simple pasta and sauce from a jar. They ate quietly, both tired from the day. Tyler was yawning by 7. Jack sent him to bed early, tucked him in, and then returned downstairs with Buck's journal. He read through it again, more carefully this time, looking for patterns, the coded references, the escalating tension, and always that torn page, that gap where the truth should be. Who was MC? Who were TB and RW? And who was H? Tomorrow he would drive into town, ask questions, find out what people remembered about Buck Mercer in 1991 and whatever had happened that made 3 good men die and 1 man run. Jack was putting the journal away when he noticed something else in the hollow under the floorboards, a photograph protected by a plastic sleeve. He pulled it out and held it up to the light. 4 men stood in front of an old building, wooden structure that might have been a feedlot or barn. They were smiling, relaxed, dressed in ranch work clothes. Jack recognized his grandfather immediately. Younger, maybe in his 60s, but unmistakably Buck. The other 3 men were strangers. Jack turned the photograph over. On the back, written in Buck's handwriting, August 6, 1991, "Good men, last good day." August 6, 1 day before the torn page, 1 day before whatever happened that killed 3 people. But that was not what made Jack's blood run cold. It was the background of the photograph. In the upper left corner, visible through a window of the building, there was a flicker of orange, small, easy to miss, but unmistakable once you saw it. Flames. This photograph had been taken while the building was already starting to burn, and in the window, reflected in the glass, barely visible but definitely there, was the outline of a person, someone standing, watching, smiling. Jack stared at the photograph until his eyes hurt, turned it over and over in his hands. Tomorrow he would go to town. Tomorrow he would start asking questions. Tonight he would lock all the doors and windows and keep his phone close and try not to think about the shadows outside or the ghosts inside, or the fact that he had brought his son to a place where good men had died and someone was still watching, still waiting. Jack looked up from the photograph and out the kitchen window. In the distance, on the ridge to the north, he saw headlights. A vehicle sitting motionless, too far away to identify, but close enough to send a message. "We know you're here." The lights sat there for 5 minutes. Then they flicked off and the darkness swallowed everything. Jack double-checked every lock, made sure Tyler's door was closed, and sat in the kitchen with Buck's journal and the photograph spread in front of him. Sleep was not going to come easy tonight. Maybe not for a long time. This land his grandfather had left him was beautiful, but it was also full of secrets. And secrets, Jack had learned in 15 years of investigating disasters, always had a way of coming to light, usually in the worst possible way. Outside, the Wyoming night pressed close. Wind moved through the grass. Something howled in the distance, coyote or worse. And somewhere out there, someone who knew about August 7, 1991 was watching the Mercer ranch and waiting to see what the grandson with soft hands would do when he learned the truth. Jack looked at his hands. They were still soft, city hands, but they were also the hands of a father who had driven 2,000 miles to give his son a second chance. And if that meant facing whatever ghosts Buck Mercer had left behind, then so be it. He closed the journal, turned off the kitchen light, and headed upstairs. Tomorrow would bring answers, or it would bring more questions. Either way, Jack Mercer was not running. Not anymore. Morning came with the kind of cold that made your breath visible and your hands ache. Jack woke to find frost on the windows and Tyler already awake, staring out at the mountains. The boy had changed in just 2 days. Something about the space here, the quiet, the distance from everything familiar. He stood straighter, looked people in the eye when he spoke. Small changes, but real. They made breakfast together. Eggs and toast on the propane stove while coffee percolated in the old tin pot. Tyler had figured out how to work it without being shown, the kind of practical competence that the city had never asked of him. Jack watched his son measure coffee grounds with careful precision and felt something loosen in his chest. This place was already doing what he had hoped it would do. "We need to go into town today," Jack said. "Get supplies. Maybe ask some questions about your great-grandfather." Tyler nodded, chewing toast. "About the journal." "Yeah, about 1991. The drive into Red Creek took 20 minutes, most of it on dirt roads that turned to washboard under the truck's tires. The town appeared gradually, first a grain elevator, then scattered houses, then the main street with its lineup of essential businesses. Population 2,100, the sign said. Elevation 5,200 feet. Established 1883. It looked like every small western town Jack had ever driven through. False-fronted buildings that had probably been there since the town's founding. Wide streets designed for horses and wagons. Pickup trucks angle-parked in front of the hardware store and the cafe. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone and strangers were noticed immediately. Jack parked in front of the sheriff's office. A modest brick building with an American flag hanging limp in the still morning air. He told Tyler to wait in the truck, locked the doors, and went inside. The office was small. 2 desks, filing cabinets, a holding cell in the back that looked like it had not been used in years. A woman sat at the front desk, 30-something, dark hair pulled back, sharp eyes that evaluated Jack in the 3 seconds it took him to close the door. "Help you?" "I'm looking for the sheriff." "He's out, I'm Deputy Reeves. What's this about?" Jack pulled out the photograph he had found, the one showing the 4 men on August 6, 1991. "I'm trying to find out about this, about what happened to these men." Deputy Reeves took the photograph. Her expression did not change, but something flickered in her eyes. Recognition, or pain, or both. She set it down on her desk like it might burn her fingers. "Where did you get this?" "My grandfather's house. I'm Jack Mercer, Buck Mercer's grandson. I inherited the ranch." Now her expression did change. She stood up, came around the desk, looked at Jack with new attention. "You're living at the Mercer place." "As of 2 days ago, my son and I." "Does Sheriff Dawson know you're here?" "Should he?" Deputy Reeves glanced at the closed door behind Jack, seemed to make a decision. "Mr. Mercer, I'm Sarah Reeves. Ray Walsh was my grandfather." She pointed to one of the men in the photograph. The one on the far right, tall and lean, with a weathered face and kind eyes. Jack had not known his name until this moment. Now he looked at the photograph with new understanding. This was not just Buck's history. It was a town's history, a family's history. "I need to know what happened in 1991, Jack said. Sarah moved to the window, checked the street, then came back and sat on the edge of her desk. "What did your grandfather tell you?" "Nothing. I met him 3 times in my life. He never talked about the past." "Then why are you asking now?" Jack pulled out Buck's journal, showed her the entries leading up to August 7, the coded references, the escalating tension, the torn page, the final entry about 3 good men dying in fire. Sarah read through it carefully. When she looked up, her eyes were wet. "My grandfather died before I was born. Grandmother raised me. She told me he was a good man, a brave man, but she never talked about how he died, just said there was a fire, an accident." "Was it?" Sarah pulled a file from a locked drawer in her desk. "This is the official report. Accidental blaze at Old Holloway feedlot. 3 transient workers killed. Bodies too damaged for identification. Case closed in 48 hours. Transient workers. That's what Sheriff Dawson filed, but my grandmother kept newspaper clippings, letters. Ray Walsh was no transient. He owned 400 acres adjacent to your grandfather's land. So did the other 2 men." She pulled out photocopies, old newspaper articles from the Red Creek Gazette. August 1991, 3 photos of the men. Miguel Cortez, age 42, survived by wife Alina and infant son. Tom Brennan, age 48, survived by wife Martha. Ray Walsh, age 51, survived by wife Dorothy and daughter Ann, Jack's own mother. Jack stared at the names, the faces. These were real people with real families who had lost fathers and husbands to whatever happened that August night. And his grandfather had survived, had lived another 30 years while these men stayed frozen at their ages, remembered but not understood. "My grandmother told me something before she died," Sarah said quietly. "She said Ray went out that night to do the right thing, that Buck Mercer and 3 other ranchers were going to stop something evil, that they knew it was dangerous but they went anyway because nobody else would." "Stop what?" She never said, just that powerful people were involved, that going to the authorities would not work because the authorities were bought. Jack thought about Buck's journal, the H operation. "Authorities are bought, we handle this ourselves. Do you know who H is?" "I have suspicions, but suspicions don't stand up in court." "Tell me anyway." Sarah looked at him for a long moment. "There's a man named Wade Holloway, owns about 40,000 acres across 3 counties now. Back in 1991, he ran operations out of an old feedlot on the edge of town, the same feedlot that burned down August 7. Operations. Drug distribution, we think. Maybe worse. Wade Holloway was suspected of running cocaine and methamphetamine through Wyoming in the 80s and 90s, using ranch land as cover, paying off local officials to look the other way. And my grandfather tried to stop him. Your grandfather and 3 other good men went to confront him, get evidence, shut it down. Instead, they all died." Jack felt the weight of it settle on him. His grandfather had not been running from guilt over an accident. He had been running from the knowledge that he had led 3 men to their deaths trying to fight corruption that was bigger than all of them. "Why are you telling me this?" Jack asked. "If the sheriff covered it up, if he's corrupt, why are you helping me?" Sarah's expression hardened. "Because I've been investigating Sheriff Frank Dawson for 2 years, off the books, on my own time, trying to build a case. But I need proof, real proof, not just my grandmother's stories and my own suspicions. If your grandfather left evidence, if there's something in that ranch house that connects Dawson to the Holloways, I can finally bring them down. And if I find that evidence, what happens to me and my son? I'll protect you as much as I can. Jack looked at this woman, this deputy who was barely older than he had been when Tyler was born, and saw the same thing he saw in the mirror every morning. Someone trying to make up for lost time. Someone carrying a burden they had not asked for but could not put down. "I'll look," Jack said, "but first I need to know more about Miguel Cortez." Sarah gave him an address. "His widow Alina runs a cafe here in town. She might talk to you, she might not. The families of the dead they don't trust easily." Jack thanked her and left. Tyler was waiting in the truck, reading a book. They drove 3 blocks to Alina's cafe, a modest storefront with hand-painted letters on the window and the smell of something delicious wafting into the street. Inside, the cafe was warm and crowded. Breakfast rush. Ranchers and workers at the counter and tables, eating eggs and hash browns and drinking coffee from heavy mugs. Conversations died when Jack walked in. Heads turned. Evaluated him with the kind of attention small towns reserved for strangers. A woman in her 60s worked the counter. Gray hair pulled back, weathered hands, eyes that had seen too much. She approached with a pot of coffee and a professional smile that did not reach her eyes. "Just you?" "My son's in the truck. Can I talk to you? Are you Alina Cortez?" The smile vanished. "Who's asking?" "Jack Mercer, Buck Mercer's grandson." The silence in the cafe became complete. Every conversation stopped. Alina set down the coffee pot like she was placing a weapon on a table. "We don't serve Mercers here." "I understand, but I'm trying to find out what happened in 1991. I think your husband died trying to do the right thing. I think my grandfather has been blamed for something that wasn't his fault." "Your grandfather walked away from that fire. My Miguel didn't." "I know, and I'm sorry, but someone is watching my ranch. Someone who knows about 1991, and I have a son to protect. I need to understand what I'm dealing with." Alina looked at him for a long time. Then she looked past him at Tyler, visible through the window, sitting in the truck with his book. Something in her expression softened. "Come back at 2, after lunch rush. I'll give you 10 minutes." Jack thanked her and left. Spent the next few hours at the hardware store buying supplies, fence wire and posts, tools he would need for basic repairs. The owner, an older woman named Martha, was more talkative than Alina had been. "Your Buck's grandson, heard you were in town." "News travels fast." "Always does. You planning to stay?" "For a while at least. The ranch needs work." Martha rang up his purchases. "Your grandfather was a good customer, came in once a month for years. Then after 1991 he stopped, started ordering everything online, never set foot in town again." "What happened in 1991? Martha's hands stilled on the register. "You should ask the people who were there." "I'm trying. Nobody wants to talk." "That's because some secrets are dangerous, Mr. Mercer. This town learned to keep its mouth shut 30 years ago. Might be wise for you to do the same." Jack loaded his supplies into the truck, took Tyler to a diner for lunch, burgers and fries that were better than they had any right to be. Tyler was quiet, watching the town through the window. "Everyone's looking at us," Tyler said. "Yeah. Why?" "Because your great-grandfather was part of something that hurt this town, and we're strangers. Small towns, they remember." "Are we going to leave?" Jack looked at his son. "Do you want to?" Tyler thought about it. "No, I like the ranch, I like the space. It's quiet, but it's not lonely, you know." Jack did know. That was exactly right. The ranch was isolated, but it did not feel empty the way the Chicago apartment had felt empty. It felt full of possibility instead. At 2 o'clock, Jack returned to the cafe alone. Elena was wiping down tables. The lunch crowd had cleared. She gestured to a booth in the back and brought 2 cups of coffee. 10 minutes, she said. Jack showed her the photograph, the journal entries, Buck's handwriting describing the confrontation, the plan to get evidence, the terrible outcome. Elena touched the photograph like she was touching Miguel's face. This was taken the day before, August 6th. They all met at the old feedlot. Your grandfather said they would take pictures, document what Wade was doing, then go in the next night when there were fewer people around. What was Wade Holloway doing? Running drugs through his feedlot, using it as a distribution point. Trucks would come in with cattle, leave with cocaine hidden in the trailers. Wade paid off everyone who needed paying. Sheriff, county officials, judges. But Miguel, he saw one of the trucks, followed it, got photos of the operation. And Wade found out. Elena nodded. Miguel came home August 6th, said there was going to be trouble. That Buck and the others were planning to confront Wade, get more evidence, shut it down themselves. I begged him not to go. He said he owed Buck. That Buck had given him work when no one else would hire an immigrant. That loyalty mattered. Her voice broke. She took a moment, composed herself. I never saw him again. Next night the feedlot burned. Sheriff Dawson came to my door at midnight, said there had been an accident, said Miguel was dead, said it was better if I did not ask questions. Did you ask anyway? I tried, but I was an immigrant, a widow with a baby. No power, no money. Dawson made it clear that if I caused trouble I might lose my son too, so I kept quiet. Raised Marcus. Told him his father was a hero even though I could not tell him why. Marcus, is he still here? Something changed in Elena's expression. Why do you want to know about my son? Because I think he might be the one watching my ranch. Elena stood abruptly. You need to leave. Elena, please. You don't understand. You come here asking questions, stirring up the past. You think you're owed answers, but you're Buck Mercer's grandson. Your family took my husband, left me to raise a son alone, left Marcus without a father. I know, and I'm sorry, but I didn't do that. I was a kid when it happened. I'm just trying to protect my own son now. Elena looked at him with eyes full of pain and anger and something else, something that might have been pity. Marcus isn't watching your ranch, Mr. Mercer. He's living there, has been for 6 months, in the old line shack on the north section, watching your grandfather die, waiting. Jack felt the world tilt. Waiting for what? For justice, for answers, for someone to finally admit what really happened. Jack drove back to the ranch with his mind racing. Marcus Cortez had been living on the property for 6 months, watching Buck die. That explained the boot prints, the fresh fence work, the sense of being observed. But it raised more questions than it answered. Tyler was waiting on the porch when Jack pulled up. Dad, someone was here. Jack's heart clenched. What do you mean? A guy, older than you but not old. He knocked on the door, asked if Buck Mercer lived here. I told him Buck was dead. He just nodded and left. What did he look like? Hispanic, tall, had a scar on his face here. Tyler touched his left cheek. Maybe early 30s. Marcus Cortez. Jack scanned the property, saw nothing, but he felt watched, the way prey feels watched. Go inside, lock the doors, I'll be back. Jack grabbed a flashlight from the truck and headed north across the property. The line shack was 1.5 miles, tucked into a draw where the creek bent east. He had seen it on his walk around the first day, but had not investigated closely. Now he approached carefully. The shack was small, maybe 12 by 12, built from logs that had weathered to silver. Smoke rose from a metal chimney. Someone was home. Jack knocked. "Marcus Cortez, I'm Jack Mercer. I think we need to talk." Silence. Then footsteps inside. The door opened. A man stood in the doorway, early 30s, with dark eyes and a scar that ran from his left temple to his jawline. He held a rifle loosely, not pointing it at Jack but not exactly pointing it away either. "Took you long enough to find me." "Your mother told me where to look." "My mother talks too much. She said you've been here 6 months, watching my grandfather." Marcus stepped aside. "Come in, but leave the door open. I don't trust Mercer's." The lined shack was surprisingly comfortable. A cot with blankets, a wood stove providing heat, supplies neatly organized on rough shelves, and covering one wall photographs, surveillance photos. Buck Mercer over the last 6 months of his life, walking to his truck, checking fences, sitting on the porch, and in the later photos visibly declining, thinner, weaker, moving like a man in pain. "You documented his death." "I documented his murder." Jack turned. "What?" Marcus set the rifle against the wall and pulled out a folder. Inside were chemical analysis reports, water samples from the well at the Mercer Ranch, showing elevated levels of thallium, a heavy metal poison, slow acting, symptoms that mimicked natural decline in elderly patients, nearly impossible to detect without knowing what to look for. "Your grandfather was poisoned. Someone put thallium in his well water. Over months, maybe a year, it accumulated in his system, made him sick, eventually killed him." Jack stared at the reports. "Why?" "Same reason 3 good men died in 1991. Wade Holloway wanted that land. Your grandfather refused to sell, so Wade killed him. Same way he killed my father." "Wade Holloway killed Miguel." Marcus's expression went hard. "Wade Holloway set the fire that burned my father alive, set it deliberately, to eliminate witnesses, to cover up his operation. Your grandfather was there. Your grandfather survived. That makes him either complicit or a coward. Or he tried to save them and failed." "Is that what you want to believe?" Jack thought about Buck's journal. "God forgive me, I wasn't fast enough. 3 good men dead because I hesitated. I found my grandfather's journal. He blamed himself. Spent 30 years carrying that guilt." "Good, he should have." "He tried, Marcus. Whatever happened that night, he tried to save them." "Trying isn't enough. My father is dead. Tom Brennan is dead. Ray Walsh is dead. Buck Mercer lived to be 87. You tell me if that's justice." Jack had no answer for that. He looked at the photographs on the wall, at the evidence of obsession and grief and anger that had driven this man to spend 6 months watching an old enemy die. "What do you want?" Jack asked. "I want the truth. I want Wade Holloway in prison for murder. I want Sheriff Dawson charged as an accessory. I want the world to know that my father died a hero, not a transient worker in the wrong place at the wrong time." "And you think I can help you get that?" "Your grandfather must have left evidence. Something. Anything that connects Wade to the fire, to the murders. Help me find it and I'll leave your ranch. Refuse, and I'll make sure everyone knows Buck Mercer died a coward who let good men burn." It was not quite a threat, but it was close. Jack met Marcus's eyes and saw pain there that went deeper than anger. Saw a son who had grown up without a father and had spent his whole life trying to fill that absence with purpose. "I'll look," Jack said, "but I need you to stay away from my house, away from my son. He's 11 years old, he's been through enough." Marcus nodded slowly. "I saw him. Earlier he looks like you." "Yeah." My father never got to see me grow up, never got to teach me things. Your grandfather took that from me. Wade Holloway took that from you. My grandfather made mistakes, but he wasn't the one who set the fire. How do you know? Because I'm reading his words. A man who set a fire that killed 3 people doesn't write "God forgive me" and carry the guilt for 30 years. He writes justifications, excuses. My grandfather wrote grief. Marcus was quiet for a long time. Find the evidence. Prove Wade did it. Then maybe I'll believe your grandfather was more than a coward. Jack left the lined shack as the sun set over the mountains, walked back across the property in growing darkness, thinking about guilt and grief and the difference between them, thinking about fathers and sons and the legacies they left behind. Tyler was safe inside when Jack returned. He had made dinner, canned chili heated on the stove. They ate quietly and Jack told him about Marcus, about Miguel, about 1991 and the fire that had changed everything. So Great-Grandpa Buck tried to stop bad guys. Yeah. And they killed his friends. Yeah. That's why he was sad all the time, why he lived alone. Jack looked at his son and saw understanding in those young eyes. Understanding that came from his own experience with loss and change, and the way the past shaped you whether you wanted it to or not. After dinner, Jack searched the house again, more thoroughly this time, looking for the evidence Marcus needed, the proof that Buck had not been complicit but had been a victim too. He went through every drawer, every closet, every box in the attic. It was in the master bedroom in Buck's desk that he finally found the key. Literally. A small brass key taped to the underside of the top drawer. Jack tried it in the desk lock. It turned smoothly and the roll top slid back with a satisfying click. Inside were the usual things: old bills, receipts, correspondence. But in the bottom drawer, wrapped in oilcloth to protect it from moisture, was a letter, sealed in an envelope, addressed in Buck's handwriting to whoever inherits this land. Read alone. Jack took it downstairs, sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee going cold beside him, opened the envelope with hands that shook slightly, unfolded the pages and began to read. To whoever reads this, I am writing this 3 weeks before my death. I know I am dying because the poison in my system is too far advanced. I know it is poison because I had my blood tested at a clinic in Billings under a false name. Thallium. The same poison the CIA used in the Cold War. Slow, painful, leaves symptoms that look like natural decline. Wade Holloway is killing me the way he killed Miguel Cortez, Tom Brennan, and Ray Walsh. Slowly, deliberately, taking pleasure in my suffering. I am not writing this to ask for revenge. I am writing this to tell the truth. The truth I should have told 30 years ago when there was still time to make it matter. August 7, 1991. Miguel, Tom, Ray, and I went to Wade Holloway's feedlot to get evidence. We had photos from Miguel showing the drug operation. We thought if we documented everything, we could go to federal authorities, bypass the local corruption, shut Wade down for good. Wade was there with his 2 sons, Travis and Dylan, both in their 20s, both working the operation. When we confronted him, Wade laughed, said we were dead men. Travis pulled a gun. Ray Walsh went for it. The gun went off. Ray went down. In the chaos that followed, Dylan Holloway knocked over a kerosene lantern. The feedlot was full of hay and fuel and it went up fast. Wade and Travis ran. Tom and Miguel tried to put out the fire. I tried to help Ray, but he was already dead from the gunshot. The fire spread faster than anything I had seen outside of combat. Within minutes, the whole structure was burning. I heard Tom screaming. I heard Miguel calling for help. But the heat was too intense, the smoke too thick. I could not reach them. Then I found Dylan. He had been hit by falling debris, badly hurt, bleeding, trapped under a beam. I pulled him free, carried him outside. He was dying, could barely breathe, but he begged me not to let his father know he survived. Said Wade would kill him for failing, for being weak. I put Dylan in my truck, drove toward the hospital. He died before we got there, bled out in my passenger seat. His last words were, "Tell Travis I forgive him. Tell my father I'm sorry." I buried Dylan in an unmarked grave on my property, made it look like he died in the fire. Let Wade think both his sons were dead. Because Dylan had told me something in those last minutes, told me about a girlfriend, a woman he loved, told me she was pregnant, begged me to protect them both from Wade. The girlfriend was Elena Cortez, Miguel's wife. She was 3 months pregnant when Miguel died. I went to her after, told her Miguel died a hero, did not tell her about Dylan, did not tell her that the baby she was carrying was Dylan Holloway's child, not Miguel's. Marcus Cortez is Dylan Holloway's son, Wade Holloway's grandson, and he has no idea. He was born in December 1991, raised his whole life believing Miguel was his father. I kept that secret for 30 years. Let Elena raise Marcus as Miguel's child. Let the boy grow up believing his father was a hero, because he was. Miguel died trying to stop evil. That makes him a hero even if he was not Marcus's biological father. But I also kept quiet about Wade's crimes, about the fire, about the murders. Sheriff Dawson helped me, made it look like an accident, covered up the deaths. In exchange, I stayed silent about the drug operation, about Wade's involvement, about everything. I told myself I was protecting Elena and Marcus, protecting them from Wade's revenge. But the truth is I was protecting myself. I was a coward. I let 3 good men's deaths go unanswered because I was afraid. Now Wade is killing me and I deserve it, but my grandson Jack does not deserve to inherit this curse. If you are reading this, Jack, I am sorry. Sorry for the secrets. Sorry for the cowardice. Sorry for leaving you a ranch full of ghosts. The evidence you need is in the storm cellar, behind the false wall on the north side. Photos, documents, Miguel's surveillance of Wade's operation, everything that could put Wade Holloway in prison for life. Use it, finish what I started. Give Miguel, Tom, and Ray the justice they deserved. And tell Marcus the truth about his father. Dylan Holloway was weak, but he was not evil. He loved Elena. He died trying to protect his child. That has to count for something. I am sorry for all of it. Sorry I was not the grandfather you deserved. Sorry I was not the man I should have been. But maybe you can be better. Maybe you can do what I could not. Your grandfather, Robert Mercer. Written February 14, 2024. Jack read the letter 3 times, felt the weight of it settle on his shoulders. Buck had not just been carrying guilt over the deaths. He had been carrying the secret of Marcus's parentage. Had let Elena raise her husband's killer's child as her own, never knowing the truth. The storm cellar. Jack had noticed it his first day, a concrete structure built into a hillside behind the house. He had assumed it was just for tornado shelter, had not investigated closely. Now he grabbed a flashlight and went outside. The cellar doors were heavy wood, secured with a rusted padlock. Jack broke it with a hammer from his truck. The doors groaned open, revealing steps leading down into darkness. The cellar was bigger than he expected. 10 by 12, concrete walls and floor, shelves loaded with old canned goods and emergency supplies. But on the north wall, hidden behind stacked boxes, was a section that sounded hollow when Jack tapped it. He moved the boxes, found the edges of a false panel, pried it open. Behind it was a space packed with plastic-wrapped packages. Jack pulled them out and carried them upstairs. In the kitchen under bright light, he opened them. Photographs, dozens of them, showing trucks at Wade Holloway's feedlot, men unloading packages, license plates visible, faces clear, all dated from summer 1991, taken by Miguel Cortez over weeks of surveillance. Documents, shipping manifests with falsified information, bank records showing payments to Sheriff Dawson, letters between Wade and distributors in Mexico, everything Miguel had gathered, everything that could have shut down Wade's operation if it had ever reached federal authorities. And one more thing, a birth certificate for Marcus Antonio Cortez Holloway, mother Elena Cortez, father Dylan Holloway, dated December 1991, never filed, never made official, but signed by a doctor who had delivered the baby and known the truth. Jack sat at the table surrounded by evidence that could destroy Wade Holloway. Evidence that would also destroy Elena's memory of her husband and Marcus's understanding of who he was. He was still sitting there when headlights appeared outside, multiple vehicles, coming fast up the ranch road. Jack moved to the window, counted trucks, 6 of them surrounding the house, men climbing out, armed. And in the lead vehicle, an older man, 70 maybe, tall even with age stooping his shoulders, hard face and colder eyes. Wade Holloway had come to collect his grandfather's debt. Jack ran upstairs, woke Tyler. "Get dressed, now, we need to go to the storm cellar." "What's happening?" "Bad people are here, I need you to trust me." They made it to the cellar before the knock came on the door. Jack sealed them inside, Tyler clutching his backpack, Jack holding the evidence that could save them or get them killed. Outside, Wade Holloway's voice carried clearly in the night air. "Jack Mercer, I know you're in there. We need to talk about your grandfather's debt, about this land, about the mistakes that were made 30 years ago." Tyler looked at Jack with wide, frightened eyes. Jack pulled his son close and whispered, "Stay quiet, stay hidden. No matter what happens, you stay here." "What about you?" "I'm going to go talk to him." "Dad, no." "I have to, but you're safe here. The evidence is safe here. And if something happens to me, you give everything to Deputy Sarah Reeves. You understand? Sarah Reeves, say it." "Sarah Reeves." "Good boy." Jack climbed the cellar steps, took a breath, opened the doors, stepped out into the night where Wade Holloway and 6 armed men waited to settle a debt that had been compounding interest for 30 years. Behind him, hidden in the darkness of the storm cellar, Tyler Mercer held evidence that could bring down an empire built on murder and corruption and lies. And somewhere in the night, Marcus Cortez watched the ranch house, not knowing that everything he believed about his father, about his family, about himself, was about to change forever. The past had finally caught up with the present, and the bill was coming due. Jack stepped out into the Wyoming night and felt the weight of 6 rifles tracking his movement. The men stood in a loose semicircle around Wade Holloway's truck, backlit by headlights that turned them into shadows with guns. Professional, patient, the kind of men who got paid to ask no questions and pull triggers when told. Wade Holloway stood apart from them, tall even at 70, with the kind of presence that came from decades of getting what he wanted through force or fear or both. His face was weathered like old leather, carved by sun and wind, and whatever darkness lived inside him. But it was his eyes that made Jack's skin crawl, cold and empty as winter sky. The eyes of a man who had done terrible things and lost sleep over none of them. "Jack Mercer," Wade said. His voice was rough like gravel sliding down metal. "You look like your grandfather, same weak chin, same soft hands." Jack kept his own hands visible, moved slowly down the porch steps. "You're trespassing on my property." Wade smiled without warmth. Your property, that's interesting. See, I've been trying to buy this land for 30 years. Made your grandfather 5 generous offers. He refused every one. Now here you are, 2 days off the bus from Chicago, and you think you own something. The deed says I do. Deeds can be changed. Accidents happen. Widows sell cheap. The threat was naked and clear. Jack felt rage surge through him but kept his voice level. I'm not selling, and I'm not my grandfather. I don't scare easy. No, Wade gestured, and 2 of his men moved toward the house. Then let's test that. Where's your boy? Jack's blood went cold. Leave him out of this. Can't do that. See, Buck learned the hard way what happens when you cross me. 3 good men burned to death because your grandfather thought he could play hero. I'm giving you a chance he didn't give them. Sign over the land, take your son, walk away. Or I put you both in the ground next to Buck. You killed my grandfather. Wade's expression didn't change. I helped him along. Old man was stubborn, needed convincing. Thallium in the well water that was elegant, slow, gave him time to think about what he'd done, what he'd cost me. Your sons. Now something flickered in Wade's eyes, pain or rage or both. My boys died in that fire, Dylan and Travis both, because Buck Mercer stuck his nose where it didn't belong. So yes, I killed him, and I'll kill you too if you don't sign that deed in the next 60 seconds. Jack thought about Tyler hidden in the storm cellar, thought about the evidence wrapped in plastic, thought about Miguel and Tom and Ray burning while Buck tried and failed to save them, thought about 30 years of lies and corruption and murder going unpunished. No, Jack said. Wade nodded like he'd expected that. Search the house, find the boy. The men moved. Jack stepped in front of the door. I called the sheriff, he's on his way. Wade laughed. Frank Dawson works for me, has for 30 years. You think he's coming to help you? A new voice cut through the night. Actually, I think he's on his way to prison. Everyone turned. A man emerged from the darkness beyond the headlights. Mid-50s, well-dressed, moving with the kind of confidence that came from authority. He held up a badge that caught the light. FBI, Travis Holloway. And before anyone gets creative with those rifles, you should know there are federal agents positioned on every approach to this property. You're surrounded. Jack stared. Travis Holloway, Wade's son, the one who was supposed to have died in the fire, very much alive and apparently very much not on his father's side. Wade's face went white. Travis. Hello, Dad, been a while. You're dead, you died in the fire. That's what Buck Mercer let you think, what I needed you to think. While you built your empire on murder and drugs and corruption, I was building a case. 4 years with the Denver field office, undercover, documenting everything. Wade's men shifted nervously. Rifles that had been pointed at Jack now wavered. Travis walked forward until he stood between Jack and his father. It's over, Dad. We have recordings, bank records, testimony from 3 of your distributors who took deals. Sheriff Dawson rolled on you yesterday, gave us everything in exchange for a reduced sentence. You're lying. Travis pulled out his phone, played audio. Dawson's voice, tired and defeated, admitting to decades of corruption, taking payments from Wade, covering up the 1991 fire, helping poison Buck Mercer, all of it on record, all of it admissible in court. Wade's expression crumbled, rebuilt itself into something harder. You're my son, my blood. I was your son, until you burned my brother alive and blamed innocent men for it. Until you spent 30 years killing anyone who stood in your way. Dylan's dead because of you. Those 3 ranchers are dead because of you. And now you're going to prison for the rest of your miserable life. Wade moved faster than a 70-year-old man should be able to move. drew a pistol from his belt, pointed it not at Travis but toward the house. "I'm not going anywhere, and if I can't have this land, nobody gets it." He fired. The bullet smashed through a front window, then another, systematic, trying to flush Tyler out or kill him where he hid. Jack lunged, tackled Wade before he could fire again. They went down hard on the frozen ground. The pistol skittered away. Wade was old but strong, wiry with rage. His fist caught Jack in the temple. Stars exploded across Jack's vision. Then Travis was there, pulling his father off. Federal agents materialized from the darkness, professional, armed, surrounding Wade's men who dropped their rifles and raised their hands with the practiced ease of people who'd been arrested before. But in the chaos, Jack heard something that stopped his heart. Tyler screaming. Not from the house, from the storm cellar, and not alone, someone else was down there with him. Jack ran, vaulted the cellar doors and plunged down the stairs. Found Tyler pressed into a corner, terrified, and standing over him, rifle in hand, was Marcus Cortez. "Don't move," Marcus said. His voice shook, the rifle shook. "I heard shots. I thought they were killing you. I came to help, found your boy instead." Marcus put down the gun. "You're scaring him." "Where's the evidence? Your grandfather's letter said there was evidence. Where is it?" Jack pointed to the packages stacked against the wall. "The photographs, the documents, Miguel's surveillance. It's all there. Everything you need to put Wade away forever." Marcus moved to the evidence, kept the rifle trained on Jack with one hand while he opened packages with the other, pulled out photos, saw his father, Miguel, young and alive, documenting Wade's operation, saw the shipping manifests, the bank records, proof of everything. "This is it," Marcus whispered. "This is what my father died for." "Yes, and there's something else you need to see." Jack pulled out the birth certificate, the one Buck had hidden, the one that would destroy everything Marcus believed about himself. Marcus took it, read it again. His face went blank, the rifle lowered. "This is a lie." "It's not. Your mother was with Dylan Holloway before she married Miguel. She was pregnant when Miguel died. Buck knew. He kept the secret to protect you and Alina." "My father was Miguel Cortez." "Miguel raised you, loved you, died protecting you. That makes him your father in every way that matters. But Dylan Holloway was your biological parent. Wade Holloway is your grandfather." Marcus looked at the certificate like it was written in a language he didn't understand. "No. I'm sorry, but you need to know the truth. Dylan died trying to protect you. His last words were about keeping you safe from Wade. Buck honored that, kept you hidden, raised you as Miguel's son." Marcus sank to the floor, the rifle forgotten. Tyler crawled to Jack, wrapped his arms around his father's waist. Jack held him tight, felt his son shaking. "Is it true?" Marcus asked. His voice was broken. "Is Wade really my grandfather?" "Yes." "Then I'm a Holloway. I'm the son of the man who killed Miguel, the grandson of the man who's been trying to kill you. You're the son of a man who loved your mother and died trying to save his child. You're the grandson Miguel chose to raise. Biology doesn't define you, Marcus. Your choices do." Outside, Jack heard vehicles. More FBI, state police. The cavalry arriving too late but arriving nonetheless. Travis's voice giving orders. Wade being read his rights. The machinery of justice finally grinding forward after 30 years of being blocked. Marcus looked at the evidence surrounding him. "My whole life is a lie." "No, your life is complicated, but Miguel's love for you was real. Alina's love was real. That's not a lie." Marcus picked up the birth certificate, stared at it. Then slowly, deliberately, he tore it in half. Dylan Holloway was a coward who knocked up my mother and got himself killed. Miguel Cortez was my father. He raised me, taught me, died for me. That's the only truth that matters. He stood, handed Jack the rifle. Take your evidence. Give it to the FBI. I want Wade to rot in prison for what he did. But I'm not a Holloway. I'll never be a Holloway. Jack understood. Sometimes you chose your family. Sometimes your family chose you. Biology was just biology. Love was what made someone a father. They climbed out of the cellar together. The scene outside had transformed. FBI vehicles everywhere. Agents processing Wade's men. Sheriff Dawson in handcuffs in the back of a cruiser, looking old and broken. And Wade Holloway himself, cuffed and defiant, being loaded into an FBI van. Travis saw Jack and Marcus emerge, walked over. Everyone okay? We're alive, Jack said. Travis looked at Marcus, really looked at him. You're Marcus Cortez. Yeah. Miguel's son. That's right. Travis's expression was complex, pain and guilt and something else. Dylan loved your mother, did you know that? He talked about her all the time, about getting out of the family business, starting over, being a father. Marcus's jaw tightened. He died before he got the chance. He died saving you. Buck told me. Years later, when I finally tracked him down. Dylan stayed in that burning building trying to get evidence out. Evidence that would protect his child from our father. That's not nothing. It's not enough either. No, it's not. They stood in uncomfortable silence. Half-brothers who didn't know each other, connected by blood and tragedy and secrets that had festered for 3 decades. Sarah Reeves arrived then in her patrol car, took in the scene with wide eyes. FBI, arrests, her corrupt sheriff in custody. She walked straight to Jack. What happened? Jack handed her the evidence packages. Everything you need, photos, documents, testimony. Wade Holloway murdered Miguel Cortez, Tom Brennan, and Ray Walsh. Covered it up with Frank Dawson's help. Poisoned my grandfather, it's all here. Sarah's hands shook as she took the packages. My grandfather can finally rest. They all can. Travis coordinated with the federal agents, gave statements, made sure everything was documented properly. Jack watched him work and saw a man trying to make up for a lifetime of his father's sins, trying to be better than the blood that ran in his veins. Wade was loaded into the van, but before they closed the doors he caught Jack's eye, smiled, not defeated, not broken, just cold. You think this ends it, Wade called out. You think prison stops me. I own people in places you can't imagine. This isn't over, Mercer, not by a long shot. Travis slammed the van doors. Ignore him. He's going to federal supermax. He won't own anything anymore except a concrete cell. But Jack felt the chill of those words anyway. Men like Wade Holloway didn't go quietly. They fought. They schemed. They found ways to hurt you from behind bars. The FBI processed the scene for another hour, took statements from Jack, Tyler, Marcus, photographed everything, bagged evidence. By the time they finished, the sun was rising over the Wind River Mountains, painting the snow-covered peaks in shades of pink and gold. Sarah approached Jack one more time. I need to tell Alina. She deserves to know the truth. Marcus stepped forward. I'll tell her, she's my mother, this should come from me. Will you tell her everything about Dylan? Marcus looked at the torn birth certificate still clutched in his hand. No, some secrets are better left buried. She loved Miguel, mourned him for 30 years. I won't take that away from her. Sarah nodded, your choice. The federal agents left. Sarah left. Travis left, promising to follow up with more questions later. And finally, it was just Jack and Tyler and Marcus standing in the ranch yard as the sun climbed higher. Tyler had been quiet through all of it, processing, trying to understand. Now he looked up at Jack. "Are we safe now?" Jack wanted to say yes, wanted to promise that Wade's arrest meant the danger was over, but he thought about that smile, that promise. This isn't over. "I think so," Jack said, "but we're going to be careful anyway." Marcus surprised them both by speaking. "I'll stay in the line shack, keep watch, at least until the trial is over." "You don't have to do that." "I know, but Miguel would have. He would have protected his friends, his family. I'm not walking away when you might need help." Jack met Marcus's eyes and saw something that hadn't been there before. Not quite friendship, not quite trust, but maybe the beginning of both. "Thank you." Marcus nodded, headed back toward the line shack, walked with the bearing of a man who'd lost something and found something else in its place. Not better necessarily, but real. Jack and Tyler went inside. The house was a disaster. Broken windows, bullet holes in the walls, but it was theirs. It was home, and they had survived. Tyler made breakfast while Jack boarded up the worst of the damage. They worked in comfortable silence, father and son, partners in this new life they were building from the ruins of the old one. After breakfast, Tyler asked the question Jack had been waiting for. Why did Great-Grandpa Buck keep all those secrets? Why didn't he just tell the truth? Jack thought about Buck's letter, about Dylan dying in the truck, about the choice to protect Elena and Marcus, about 30 years of carrying guilt and poison and lies. Because he thought he was protecting people, and maybe he was, but secrets have a way of growing, of getting heavier, until they crush you under their weight. Like the poison in the well. Yeah, exactly like that. Tyler was quiet for a moment, then said something that hit Jack harder than any of Wade's threats. "I'm glad you don't keep secrets from me." Jack pulled his son into a hug. "I'll never lie to you, no matter how hard the truth is. We're in this together." "Promise." "Promise." They spent the rest of the day cleaning up, sweeping glass, patching holes, making the house livable again. It was good work, honest work, the kind of work that let you think while your hands stayed busy. Jack thought about the trial to come, about testifying against Wade Holloway, about the danger that might still be waiting. But he also thought about Tyler's smile when he figured out how to patch drywall, about Marcus choosing to stay, about Sarah finally getting justice for her grandfather, about Travis trying to atone for his father's sins. The past had caught up with them, but they had faced it, survived it, and maybe, just maybe, they could move forward now. That night, Jack did something he hadn't done since arriving in Wyoming. He called his ex-wife Sarah. She answered on the third ring. "Jack, is Tyler okay?" "He's fine, better than fine, but there's been some trouble out here." He told her everything. The journal, the fire, Wade Holloway, the siege, the FBI, all of it. Sarah was quiet when he finished. Then she said something that surprised him. "You protected him." "Of course I did." "No, I mean really protected him, not just physically. You brought him into your world, made him part of the solution instead of hiding him from the problem. That's what he needed, what I couldn't give him." Jack didn't know what to say to that. "Keep him safe, Jack, but also keep doing what you're doing." He sounds different, stronger, like he's finally finding himself. "He is." "Good, that's good." They talked a while longer, made arrangements for her to visit, agreed on the custody schedule. It was the most civil conversation they'd had in 2 years. After hanging up, Jack found Tyler on the porch. The boy was sitting in Buck's old chair looking out at the mountains. Jack joined him. They sat in silence, watching the sun set over the Powder River basin. "Dad." "Yeah. I'm glad we came here." "Me too, buddy. Even with all the scary stuff." "Even with that." Tyler leaned against him. "Think Great-Grandpa Buck can see us, like from heaven or wherever." Jack thought about Buck's letter, about the old man dying alone, poisoned, carrying secrets that had eaten him alive, about the choice to leave evidence, to give his grandson a chance to finish what he couldn't. "Yeah," Jack said, "I think he can, and I think he's proud of you, of us." "You think he's with Miguel and Tom and Ray now, like they're friends again?" "I hope so." They sat until the stars came out, the same stars Buck had watched, the same stars that had witnessed Miguel's courage and Tom's loyalty and Ray's sacrifice, the same stars that would keep watching long after all of them were dust. But for now, Jack Mercer and his son were alive, were safe, were home. And that was enough. The trial would come. Wade's revenge might come. More trouble was probably waiting somewhere down the road. But tonight they had this porch, this view, this moment of peace bought with blood and courage and truth. Jack pulled Tyler closer, felt his son's steady breathing, watched the mountains fade into shadow. Tomorrow they would start rebuilding, would fix the windows and patch the walls and make this house whole again. Tomorrow Marcus would come by, and they would start the hard work of becoming something like friends. Tomorrow Sarah would call with updates about the case, and the trial, and the long road to justice. Tomorrow Travis would send evidence reports and legal documents, and reminders that the fight was not quite over. But tonight, Jack Mercer was a father sitting with his son on a Wyoming porch under stars so bright, they seemed close enough to touch. And that was a kind of victory Wade Holloway's money and power, and violence could never take away. Inside the house, Buck's journal sat on the kitchen table, open to the last entry. "God forgive me. 3 good men dead because I hesitated." Jack would add his own entry soon, would write about the evidence and the arrests and the justice that had finally come, would write about Tyler's courage and Marcus's choice and the price of secrets. But he would also write about hope, about second chances, about fathers and sons and the legacies they built together. Because that was the real story, not the tragedy of 1991, not Wade's crimes or Buck's guilt, but the stubborn human need to make meaning from suffering, to build something good on ground soaked with blood. The wind picked up, carried the smell of sage and snow and the particular cleanness of high country air. Coyotes began their evening chorus, calling across the darkness. Tyler stirred. "Should we go in?" "In a minute." "Okay." They sat a while longer, father and son, 2 people who had come west looking for a fresh start and found instead a reckoning with the past. But they had survived that reckoning, had faced it together, had come out the other side not unscathed but intact. And in the morning, when the sun rose again over the Powder River basin, they would wake up in their house on their land and begin the work of turning an inheritance of dust and secrets into something worth passing on. Jack looked at his hands in the starlight, still soft, still city hands by Wyoming standards, but also the hands that had found evidence, that had protected his son, that had helped bring justice to 3 good men who had died believing it would never come. Buck had been wrong about one thing. This place had not eaten Jack alive. It had made him stronger, made him better, made him the kind of man who could stand on a porch with his son and know that whatever came next, they would face it together. That was Buck's real legacy, Not the guilt or the secrets or the poisoned well, but the land, the house, the chance to start over. And Jack Mercer, 50 years old and twice divorced and freshly unemployed, had taken that chance and made something of it. Made a home, made a life, made peace with ghosts that had haunted this ranch for 30 years. The wind shifted, brought the sound of Marcus's radio from the line shack, Spanish music, soft and melancholy, the sound of a man keeping vigil, keeping faith. Tyler heard it too. He's still out there. Yeah. Think he'll ever forgive Great-Grandpa Buck? I think he already has. He just doesn't know it yet. They went inside, locked the door. Jack tucked Tyler into bed and stood in the doorway watching his son fall asleep in a room that had once been his own, the circle completing itself, generations turning. In the kitchen, Jack added his entry to Buck's journal. March 15, 2024. Wade Holloway arrested. Federal charges, evidence recovered, justice coming for Miguel, Tom, and Ray, Tyler safe, Marcus staying to help, we survived. And then, because it felt important, because it felt true. Buck, you were right about one thing. A son is a blessing and a burden, but you were wrong about the rest. I didn't mess it up, and neither did you. We're doing okay out here. You can rest now. Jack closed the journal, turned out the lights, went to bed in Buck's room with Buck's ghosts finally quiet. And for the first time since arriving in Wyoming, he slept deeply, dreamlessly, at peace. Outside, the ranch settled into night. The mountains stood watch. The stars wheeled overhead in their ancient patterns. And somewhere in the darkness, Marcus Cortez sat in his lined shack with his father's photograph and his own complicated truth, and the knowledge that family was something you chose as much as something you were born into. The past was not erased, but it was finally, after 30 years, beginning to heal. And that was enough for tonight. 3 days after Wade Holloway's arrest, Jack woke to his phone ringing at 4 in the morning. The kind of call that never brought good news. He grabbed it on the second ring, already moving toward Tyler's room. Jack Mercer, a woman's voice, tense, professional. Yeah. This is Agent Lisa Chen, FBI Denver. We have a situation. Wade Holloway escaped during transport to federal holding. Jack's blood went cold. How? Ambush on Highway 26. 3 agents down, 2 critical. Holloway had help, professional, well-coordinated. We think he's coming for you. Jack was in Tyler's room now. Empty bed, covers thrown back, window open, cold air pouring in. Tyler was gone. Jack's vision tunneled. The phone felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. He already has my son. Agent Chen swore. When? I don't know, sometime tonight. His window's open. Stay where you are. We're sending units to your location. But Jack was already moving, throwing on clothes, grabbing Buck's rifle from the closet, the one his grandfather had kept cleaned and loaded for 30 years, waiting for Wade to finally come. He ran outside. Marcus was already there, fully dressed, rifle in hand. He'd heard the commotion. What happened? Wade escaped. He has Tyler. Marcus's expression went hard. How long ago? I don't know. They checked the ground around Tyler's window. Fresh tire tracks leading away from the house. 2 sets of footprints, one large, one small. Tyler had been taken on foot to a waiting vehicle. Professional extraction, quick and quiet. Marcus crouched by the tracks. 2 hours old, maybe 3. Truck, heavy-duty, deep treads, heading north. Toward Holloway's old compound. That's what I'm thinking. Sarah Reeves arrived 15 minutes later in her patrol car, lights flashing. She'd been monitoring FBI channels and heard about the escape. Her face was pale when she saw Jack's expression. "He has Tyler." Sarah pulled her radio, called for backup, called the state police, called everyone who might help, but they all knew the truth. Wade had a 3-hour head start and owned half the county through fear or favors or both. Help would come too late. Jack loaded the truck, ammunition, water, first aid kit, the evidence packages in case he needed leverage. Marcus threw his gear in the passenger side. Sarah tried to stop them. "Wait for the FBI, for backup. This is what Wade wants, to draw you out. He has my son. And he'll kill you both if you go in alone." Marcus spoke up. "He won't be alone." Jack looked at Marcus, at the man who'd spent 6 months watching Buck die, who'd learned his whole life was built on lies, who had every reason to walk away from the Mercer family and their cursed legacy. "You don't have to do this." Miguel would have. He died protecting people. Time I lived up to that. They left before dawn, following the tire tracks north across open country. Sarah followed in her patrol car despite Jack's protests. "My grandfather died at Holloway's hands. I'm seeing this through." The landscape transformed as they drove. Ranch land gave way to badlands, eroded hills and gullies carved by ancient water. The old Holloway compound sat in the middle of it, 10 miles from the nearest paved road, a place chosen specifically because it was hard to reach and harder to surround. They found the truck abandoned 2 miles from the compound, doors open, engine cold, tracks leading toward a cluster of buildings visible in the distance. The old feedlot where Miguel and Tom and Ray had died, where Dylan Holloway had knocked over a lantern and started a fire that burned for 30 years. Jack wanted to charge in. Every instinct screamed at him to run toward those buildings and his son, but Marcus grabbed his arm. "Stop, think. Wade's been planning this. He knew the FBI would come for him eventually. This is his end game." "What do you suggest?" Marcus pulled out his phone, showed Jack satellite images of the compound. 3 buildings still standing, main house, old feedlot barn, equipment shed. Wade will be in the feedlot, where it all started. That's where he'll want it to end. Sarah called the FBI, gave them coordinates. Agent Chen promised tactical teams within the hour, but an hour was a lifetime when your son was in the hands of a man who'd burned 3 people alive and smiled about it. They approached on foot, spread out. Jack took point with Marcus flanking left and Sarah hanging back with her rifle. The morning sun was just breaking over the eastern horizon, painting the Badlands in shades of gold and red, beautiful and terrible, like fire. The compound was eerily quiet. No movement, no sound except wind through broken windows and the distant cry of a hawk. Jack's heart hammered so hard he could hear it in his ears. They cleared the house first. Empty, furniture covered in dust and rat droppings, evidence that Wade hadn't lived here in decades. This was a ghost place, a monument to old crimes. The equipment shed was the same, abandoned, forgotten, which left the feedlot barn. It stood at the center of the compound, a large wooden structure with burned scars still visible on the north wall. The wall that had collapsed 33 years ago, killing 3 good men. Someone had boarded it up, reinforced it, kept it standing when it should have been torn down and scattered. Wade's voice called out from inside. "Jack Mercer, I was wondering how long you'd take. Come inside, alone, or I start cutting pieces off your boy." Jack moved toward the door. Marcus grabbed him. "It's a trap." "I know. You'll die in there." "Probably." "Miguel died for nothing if you throw your life away." Jack met Marcus's eyes. Miguel died protecting his son, That's not nothing, that's everything. He handed Marcus the evidence packages. If I don't come out, make sure Wade goes down for this. All of it, promise me. Marcus took the packages. I promise. Jack walked to the barn door. It hung open like a mouth. Dark inside despite the morning light. He could smell smoke. Old smoke. 30 years old but still there, still clinging to the wood. He stepped inside. The interior was larger than it looked from outside. High ceiling supported by massive beams. Hay storage in lofts on either side. And in the center, sitting in a chair with his hands bound, was Tyler. Alive, terrified, but alive. Wade Holloway stood behind him, 70 years old but standing straight, holding a pistol loosely, confident, in control. Behind him, 3 men with rifles, the same kind of professionals who'd ambushed the FBI convoy. "Drop the rifle," Wade said. Jack set it down, raised his hands. "Good, now kick it away." Jack did. Wade smiled. "You're not as stupid as your grandfather. Buck walked in here with his rifle and his friends and his righteous anger. Thought he could force me to stop my operation. Thought 4 ranchers could take down an empire. You killed them." "I defended my property, my livelihood. They came here to destroy me, started pulling out files, taking photos. Dylan tried to stop them, got in a scuffle with the big Mexican. Cortez, I think his name was. Lantern fell. Place went up fast." "You're lying. You set the fire deliberately." Wade shrugged. "Believe what you want, but I'll tell you the truth because you're going to die here anyway. Yes, I said it. Waited until they were distracted, poured kerosene along the exits, lit it up, trapped them inside like rats. Dylan died too." Something flickered in Wade's eyes. Dylan was weak, tried to let them out, tried to save them, his own father's enemies, so I left him in there with them, let him burn with the rest. Jack felt sick. "Your own son." "A son who betrayed me, deserved what he got." Buck pulled him out, saved his life. Dylan died later, but Buck tried. Wade's expression went cold. Buck Mercer should have let him burn. Instead, he saved the worthless boy and let him bleed out in his truck, probably on purpose. Probably wanted Dylan to suffer. Dylan's last words were about protecting his child, about keeping his baby safe from you. Dylan had no child. Elena Cortez was pregnant. Marcus is your grandson. Wade laughed. Elena's brat is Miguel's spawn, not Dylan's. No, Marcus is Dylan's biological son. Buck knew, kept the secret for 30 years, raised Marcus as Miguel's boy to keep him safe from you. Wade's smile faltered. "You're lying." "I have the birth certificate. Dylan Holloway, father, Elena Cortez, mother, signed by the doctor who delivered him." For the first time, uncertainty crossed Wade's face. "Where is this certificate?" "Somewhere you'll never find it, but Marcus knows. The whole town will know. Your grandson, the son of the boy you murdered, being raised by the man whose murder you ordered. That's your legacy, Wade. That's what you built." Wade's hand shook, just slightly, but enough. "It doesn't matter. Dylan's dead. The Cortez brat thinks he's Mexican trash, and after I kill you and your boy, there won't be anyone left to tell the story. FBI's coming. You have maybe 30 minutes. Plenty of time." Wade moved the pistol from Tyler to Jack. "Your grandfather died slow, poison eating him from the inside. But you, I'm feeling generous, quick bullet. Then your boy, then I disappear. I've got accounts in the Caymans, passports in 3 names, places Wade Holloway can't be touched." Tyler spoke for the first time. His voice shook, but it was clear. "My dad's not alone." Wade glanced at the boy. "What?" Marcus is outside, and Deputy Reeves, they have rifles. They're probably already aiming at your men. Wade's expression hardened. He moved quickly, grabbing Tyler and putting the pistol to his head. Tell them to show themselves or I blow his brains out. Jack's heart stopped. Don't, please. 5 seconds. The barn door opened. Marcus walked in, rifle lowered. Sarah followed. Both had their hands visible. Wade smiled. The whole rescue party, how touching, guns on the ground. They complied. Wade's men moved to cover them. Now all 5 of them were trapped. Well, Wade said, this is better, the Cortez bastard, the bleeding heart deputy, the Mercer trash, all together, all about to die where this started. Marcus stepped forward. I want the truth, about my father, about Dylan. Wade studied him, really looked at him for the first time, and Jack saw recognition dawn. You have Dylan's eyes, Wade whispered. His mouth, his stance. Miguel Cortez was my father. Miguel Cortez was a thief who stole my son's woman. But Dylan, weak as he was, he loved her, talked about her constantly, about the baby, about running away together. Marcus's face was stone, so it's true. Apparently, not that it matters, you're still trash, just Holloway trash instead of Mexican trash. I'm neither, I'm my mother's son and Miguel's son, they raised me, loved me, that's all that matters. Sentiment won't stop bullets. A new voice cut through the tension. No, but federal agents will. Everyone turned. Travis Holloway stood in the loft above them. He must have climbed in through a damaged section of roof. His FBI badge gleamed in the dusty light. His service weapon pointed at his father. It's over, Dad. Tactical teams are surrounding this building. You're not leaving here except in cuffs. Wade's expression went from shock to rage. You did this, set me up, betrayed your own blood. You killed Dylan, my brother, your son. You just admitted it. Dylan was weak. Dylan was brave. He tried to save those men, tried to stop you, and you let him burn for it. Wade moved the pistol from Tyler to Travis. You going to shoot your own father, boy? If I have to. You won't, you're weak like Dylan was. Jack saw his chance. While Wade was focused on Travis, while the men with rifles were watching the loft, Jack dove for Tyler, knocked the chair sideways, grabbed his son and rolled. Gunfire erupted, Wade's men firing at Travis, Travis firing back, Sarah and Marcus scrambling for their weapons. Jack covered Tyler with his body, felt bullets punch through the wall above them, felt splinters rain down, heard someone scream. Then FBI agents poured through every opening. Doors, windows, the roof, tactical gear, professional, overwhelming force. Wade's men dropped their rifles and raised their hands. But Wade himself still had his pistol, still had fight in him. He swung toward Jack and Tyler, raised the gun. Marcus hit him from the side, tackled the old man. They went down hard. The pistol skittered across the floor. Wade fought like a demon, 70 years old but fueled by rage and hate. He got his hands around Marcus's throat, squeezed. You're a Holloway. You should be killing them, not protecting them. Marcus's face went red, then purple. His hands clawed at Wade's wrists. Jack grabbed Wade from behind, pulled him off. Wade spun, surprisingly strong, caught Jack with an elbow to the temple. Stars exploded across Jack's vision. Then Travis was there, not with his gun but with his hands, father and son, one last time. Let it go, Dad, it's done. Wade looked at his surviving son, at the man who'd spent 4 years building a case against him, at the betrayal written across Travis's face. You're no son of mine. No, I'm not anymore. FBI agents moved in, cuffed Wade, read him his rights. He didn't resist, just stared at Travis with eyes full of hate. Jack pulled Tyler close, checked him for injuries. The boy was shaking but whole, alive. Sarah helped Marcus to his feet. He was coughing, red marks on his throat where Wade's hands had been. "You okay?" she asked. "I will be." Wade was being led away when he stopped, turned to look at Marcus. "You're my blood whether you like it or not. Holloway blood. It'll poison you eventually. You'll become what I am." Marcus met his grandfather's eyes. "No, I'm Miguel Cortez's son. I carry his blood, his honor, his courage. You're nothing to me." Wade smiled, not warmth, just cold satisfaction. "We'll see." Then he was gone, out of the barn, into federal custody, disappearing into the justice system that would lock him away forever. Jack held Tyler and watched him go, felt the weight of 30 years lift off this place, off this cursed ground where good men had died and evil men had thrived. The FBI processed the scene, took statements, photographed everything. Agent Chen approached Jack with concern in her eyes. "I'm sorry about the escape, about your son being taken. You got him back, that's what matters. Wade had help, inside help. We're investigating everyone who had access to that transport. He owned people, that's how he operated. Not anymore." They let Jack and Tyler leave after 2 hours of questions. Marcus and Sarah came with them. Travis stayed behind, coordinating with federal agents, making sure every detail was documented properly. Before they left, Jack found Travis alone for a moment. "Thank you for coming, for standing up to him." Travis looked exhausted, decades older than his 55 years. "He was my father. I should have stopped him years ago." "You stopped him now, that's what matters." "Is it? 3 men are dead because I wasn't brave enough to act sooner. 3 men died because Wade Holloway was evil, not because you were human." Travis nodded but didn't look convinced. "Marcus, is he really Dylan's son?" "Yes." "Does he know?" "He knows. He's chosen to be Miguel's son anyway." "Smart kid. The Holloway name isn't worth carrying." They drove back to the ranch in silence. Tyler fell asleep in the truck, exhausted from fear and adrenaline crash. Jack kept one hand on his son's shoulder the whole drive, needing to touch him, to know he was real and alive. Marcus rode with Sarah in her patrol car. Through the rearview mirror, Jack saw them talking. 2 people who'd lost fathers to Wade's greed. 2 people who were maybe finding something like family in the wreckage. Back at the ranch, Jack carried Tyler inside, put him to bed, sat beside him until the boy woke up enough to ask the question that had been building. "Dad, was great-grandpa Buck a good man?" Jack thought about the journal, the letter, the 30 years of guilt, the choice to save Dylan and protect Marcus. He was a complicated man who made hard choices, some good, some bad, but he tried to do right in the end. That's all any of us can do. "I think he was good. He left us this place. He left us the evidence to stop Wade." "Yeah, he did." Tyler drifted back to sleep. Jack stayed with him until evening, until the shadows grew long and the Wyoming sky turned purple and gold. Downstairs, he found Marcus and Sarah sitting at the kitchen table, coffee between them, the evidence packages spread out. "We're going to make sure this sticks," Sarah said. "Every charge, every crime, Wade Holloway is going away forever." "What about the inside help, the people who helped him escape?" "FBI's handling it, but Sarah and I have been talking. There are more people in this county on Wade's payroll, people who might cause trouble even with Wade in prison." Marcus leaned forward. I'm staying at the line shack until the trial is over, until we're sure it's safe. Jack wanted to argue, but the truth was he needed the help, Tyler needed the protection, and Marcus needed purpose. Okay, but you're not staying in the line shack. The bunkhouse is warmer, has better security. You stay there. Marcus looked surprised. That's your property. It's our property. Miguel earned it with his blood. You inherited it through him. This ranch belongs to all of us who fought for it. Sarah smiled. I like that, the Mercer Cortez Ranch. Just the Mercer Ranch, Marcus said quickly. Miguel wouldn't want his name used for glory. He'd want it to stand for something. Then it will, Jack said. We'll make this place stand for what Miguel believed in, what Tom and Ray believed in: justice, community, family. They talked until dark, made plans, discussed security, figured out how to run the ranch while dealing with the trial and the media attention that was surely coming. When Sarah left, Marcus helped Jack board up Tyler's window properly, install better locks. They worked in comfortable silence, two men who'd started as enemies and somehow become something like friends. I'm sorry, Marcus said, for threatening you, for scaring Tyler. You were trying to find justice for your father. I understand that. Miguel taught me better. He would be ashamed of how I acted. Miguel would be proud of how you finished it. You saved Tyler today. Saved me. That's what he would have done. Marcus was quiet for a long time. Wade said the Holloway blood would poison me, that I'd become like him. Blood is just blood, Marcus. You are who you choose to be. You chose to save us. You chose to honor Miguel. That makes you a Cortez, not a Holloway. I tore up the birth certificate, but the truth is still there. Yeah, it is. And you can choose what to do with it. Tell Alina. Don't tell her. Either way, Miguel was your father. That's the truth that matters. They finished the window, stood back to admire their work. Strong, secure. No one was getting through that again. Jack walked Marcus to the bunkhouse, made sure he had everything he needed: heat, blankets, food. Get some rest. Tomorrow we start rebuilding. Rebuilding what? Everything: the barn, the fences, this family, all of it. Marcus nodded. I'd like that. Jack returned to the house, checked on Tyler one more time, found him awake. Dad. Yeah, buddy. Are we safe now? Jack thought about Wade in custody, about the trial coming, about the possibility of more threats from people Wade had corrupted. But he also thought about Marcus in the bunkhouse standing guard, about Sarah coordinating with the FBI, about Travis working to dismantle his father's empire from the inside. Yeah, Jack said, we're safe. Can I ask you something? Anything. If you had to choose between keeping the ranch and keeping me safe, what would you choose? Jack pulled his son into a fierce hug. You, every time, 1,000 times. This land is just dirt and grass. You're my whole world. Tyler hugged back, actually hugged back, the first real hug since the divorce. I love you, Dad. Jack felt tears sting his eyes. I love you too, buddy. They stayed like that for a long time, father and son, safe together, home. Later, after Tyler was truly asleep, Jack sat at the kitchen table with Buck's journal. He wrote the day's events: Wade's capture, Tyler's rescue, the truth about Dylan finally revealed. And then he wrote something for himself. Buck, you spent 30 years carrying guilt over things you couldn't control, choices made in seconds that echoed for decades. But you also saved a life, protected a child, left evidence that brought justice. I choose to remember that, to honor that, to build on it. Tyler's safe, Marcus is family, Wade's going to prison, the past is finally settling. You can rest now. We'll take it from here. Jack closed the journal, turned out the lights, went to bed in a house that felt, for the first time, like it wasn't haunted anymore. Outside, Marcus sat in the bunkhouse with Miguel's photograph. The man who'd raised him, taught him, loved him despite no blood connection. The man whose honor Marcus would spend the rest of his life trying to live up to. And somewhere in a federal holding cell, Wade Holloway sat alone with his hate and his losses, and the knowledge that his empire was dust, and his grandson had chosen poverty and honor over wealth and corruption. The Powder River Basin settled into night. Stars emerged. Mountains stood eternal. And the old Holloway compound, scene of so much pain, began the slow work of becoming just another ruin in the Badlands. Just dirt and memory. Justice had come, not perfect, not complete, but real. And sometimes in this broken world, that was enough. 3 months after Wade Holloway's final arrest, Jack stood in a federal courtroom in Cheyenne watching justice arrive 33 years late. The jury foreman stood, paper trembling in his hands, and read the verdict that would end one story and begin another. Guilty on all counts. First-degree murder for Miguel Cortez. First-degree murder for Tom Brennan. First-degree murder for Ray Walsh. Attempted murder of Robert Mercer. Conspiracy. Drug trafficking. Corruption of public officials. The charges kept coming, each one another nail in the coffin of a man who had built an empire on blood and lies. Wade sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed, face expressionless. He'd aged in 3 months. The hard man who'd strangled Marcus and threatened Tyler was gone, replaced by something hollowed out and brittle. But his eyes were still cold when they met Jack's across the courtroom, still promising revenge from whatever hell waited for men like him. The judge spoke in measured tones about the severity of the crimes, about justice delayed but not denied, about the families who had waited decades for this moment. Then came the sentence that would lock Wade Holloway away until death claimed him. Life in prison. No possibility of parole. Federal supermax facility in Colorado where he would spend 23 hours a day in a concrete box thinking about the men he'd burned alive and the grandson who'd rejected his blood. Sarah sat next to Jack in the gallery. She'd taken personal time to attend every day of the trial, testified about her grandfather Ray, about the cover-up, about the 30 years her grandmother had lived not knowing the truth. When the verdict was read, she gripped Jack's hand so hard it hurt. Then she let go and wiped tears from her eyes. On Jack's other side, Marcus sat stone-faced. He testified too, about Buck's letter, about the evidence, about choosing to honor Miguel instead of Wade. The defense had tried to discredit him, to paint him as a bitter man with an agenda, but the evidence spoke louder than any character assassination could. Photos, documents, Wade's own confession recorded by Travis during the barn confrontation. Travis himself sat in the front row, not with the prosecution but not with his father either. Alone. He'd given the most damning testimony of all, had walked the jury through Wade's criminal operations, the drug trafficking, the murder conspiracy, the decades of corruption, had admitted his own cowardice in not acting sooner, had broken down on the stand when describing how his father had deliberately left Dylan to burn. After the trial, they gathered outside the courthouse. Jack, Tyler, Marcus, Sarah, Travis, an unlikely family forged in fire and truth and the shared weight of difficult choices. Travis approached Marcus first. The two men who shared a father neither wanted to claim. They'd barely spoken during the trial. Now Travis extended his hand. "I'm sorry for what my father did, for what my family took from you." Marcus looked at the hand, then took it. "You're not your father, you proved that." "Neither are you." "No, I'm my father's son, Miguel's son." Travis nodded. He was a good man, better than either of ours. They stood in awkward silence for a moment, then Travis pulled out an envelope. Wade had assets, legitimate ones, the ranch, equipment, livestock that was sold off over the years. After the government takes what they're owed for his crimes, there will be money left. I'm signing my portion over to you. It's not much. Maybe 50,000, but it's yours. Marcus started to refuse. Travis cut him off. Dylan would have wanted you to have it. Whatever else he was, he loved your mother. Loved you before you were born. This is blood money either way. Better you use it for something good than let it rot in government accounts. Marcus took the envelope. I'll put it toward the ranch, toward rebuilding what Wade tried to destroy. Good, that's good. Travis turned to Jack. I'm leaving Wyoming, going back to Denver, maybe somewhere farther, too many ghosts here. I understand. But if you need anything, if there's trouble, you call me. I owe Buck that much. I owe all of you. Jack shook his hand. You're a good man, Travis. Your father's son in blood only. In everything else, you're your own creation. Travis's eyes went wet. He nodded once sharply, then walked away. Jack watched him go and thought about fathers and sons, and the weight of names you didn't choose but had to carry anyway. The drive back to Red Creek took 2 hours. Tyler slept in the backseat, exhausted from days of sitting in court, listening to testimony about murders and fires and corruption. He understood more than Jack wanted him to. But he'd also seen justice done, had seen that the system, slow and imperfect as it was, could still work. Marcus rode with Sarah in her patrol car. She'd been elected interim sheriff after Dawson's arrest, was running unopposed in the special election next month. The town had rallied behind her, grateful for her honesty, her courage, her willingness to speak truth even when it cost her. As they passed the sign for Red Creek, population 2,100, elevation 5,200 feet, Jack felt something shift in his chest. This place had been hostile when he arrived, unwelcoming, full of people who blamed the Mercer name for old wounds. But now people waved when they drove past, nodded, even smiled. The trial had been cathartic for the whole community. 30 years of secrets exposed to sunlight and found wanting. Wade's corruption network dismantled. Good people vindicated. The guilty punished. They stopped at Alina's cafe. She'd been waiting for them, coffee already brewed, food already prepared. When Marcus walked in, she wrapped him in a fierce hug. Mihijo, it's done. It's finally done. Yes, Mama, it's done. She pulled back, studied his face. You look different, lighter. Marcus smiled. I feel lighter. Alina turned to Jack. And you, the grandson who came to finish what Buck started, thank you. I didn't do it alone. No, but you did it. Miguel can rest now. Tom, Ray, all of them. They sat at a table in the back, the one Alina reserved for family. She brought plates of food that kept coming. Tamales and rice and beans and fresh tortillas. Comfort food. Celebration food. The food of survival and hope. Tyler ate like he'd never seen food before. The trial had stolen his appetite for weeks. Now it was back. Alina watched him with grandmotherly approval. This boy needs meat on his bones. You bring him here every Sunday. I'll feed him proper. Jack started to protest. Alina waved him off. No arguments, your family now, family eats together. After lunch, Marcus walked Jack out to the truck. There's something I need to tell you about the ranch. Jack waited. I want to buy in, become a partner, not charity, not out of guilt, but because I want to build something there. Something that honors Miguel, that honors what this land means. Marcus, you don't have to pay me. You've earned your place. I'm not looking for a handout. I'm looking for a partnership. Equal stake, Equal work, equal say, I've got Travis's money, I've got some savings, it's not much but it's honest. Jack looked at this man who'd been his enemy, who'd become his friend, who'd saved his son's life and rejected a fortune to honor a poor man's memory. Okay, partners. They shook hands, sealed it the old way, with grip and eye contact and the understanding that a man's word meant something in this part of the world. The following Sunday, the town held a memorial service, not just for Miguel and Tom and Ray, but for Buck too, the four men who tried to stop evil and paid different prices for their courage. They erected a monument in the town square, a simple granite stone with four names and a single sentence. They stood for what was right. 300 people attended, the entire town and then some, ranchers from surrounding counties, FBI agents who'd worked the case, even a few reporters, though Jack had refused all interview requests. This wasn't about publicity. This was about closure. Sarah spoke about her grandfather Ray, about the stories her grandmother had told, about a man who believed in justice and community and died trying to protect both. A woman named Martha stood next, Tom Brennan's widow. She'd remarried years ago but kept her first husband's name for her children. She spoke about Tom's laugh, his kindness, the way he'd taught their kids to ride and rope and believe that right mattered more than might. Elena spoke about Miguel in Spanish, then English, about a man who'd crossed a border looking for opportunity and found instead a calling, who'd raised another man's child as his own, who'd died protecting his community from poison. Then Jack stood. He'd been dreading this all week. Public speaking had never been his strength, but Tyler had asked him to do it, had said Buck deserved someone to tell his story properly. Jack pulled out his prepared notes, then folded them and put them away. This needed to come from the heart, not from a script. My grandfather Buck wasn't perfect. He made mistakes, kept secrets, carried guilt that ate him alive from the inside, but he also tried to do right. He saved a life when he could have walked away. He left evidence that brought justice when he could have let it die with him. He gave me and my son a second chance when we needed it most. Jack paused, looked at Tyler sitting in the front row, at Marcus standing beside Elena, at Sarah in her uniform, at the faces of a town that had learned to forgive. These four men, they stood together against something evil. They knew the cost might be high. They went anyway. That's not just courage, that's love. Love for their families, for their community, for the idea that some things are worth dying for. His voice broke. He took a breath, continued. Miguel, Tom, and Ray died that night, but Buck, he died slowly over 30 years, poisoned by Wade's chemicals but also by his own guilt, by the weight of surviving when better men didn't. I wish I'd known him better. Wish I'd told him I understood, that I forgave him, but I didn't get that chance. Jack looked at the monument, at the four names carved in granite. So I'm saying it now. Buck, I forgive you, we all do. You can rest now. Your work is done, and we'll make sure your sacrifice meant something. He sat down. Tyler grabbed his hand and held it. The service continued, but Jack barely heard it. He was thinking about Buck's journal, about the final entry he would write tonight, the one that would close the book on this chapter of the Mercer family story. After the service, people approached Jack, shook his hand, thanked him, shared memories of Buck from before 1991 when he'd been part of the community, when he'd been a friend and neighbor instead of a recluse haunted by ghosts. An old rancher named Pete pulled Jack aside. Your grandfather helped me once. Back in 1988, flash flood took out my herd. I was ruined. Buck showed up with 50 head of cattle, said it was a loan. When I tried to pay him back, he said I already had, by surviving, by not giving up. A woman named Dorothy approached. Buck fixed my roof when I was widowed. Wouldn't take payment, just said that's what neighbors do. Story after story. Acts of kindness Jack had never known about. A man who'd spent 30 years punishing himself for one terrible night while continuing to help people in quiet ways, while continuing to be good even when he felt he deserved to suffer. The memorial ended, people dispersed, but before Jack could leave, Marcus approached with Alina. "There's something we need to show you." They drove to the cemetery on the edge of town, the old section where generations of Red Creek families rested under weathered headstones. Marcus led them to a plot in the back corner, 4 graves, each with a simple marker. Miguel Cortez, beloved husband and father, 1949 to 1991. Tom Brennan, faithful friend, 1943 to 1991. Ray Walsh, man of honor, 1940 to 1991. And next to them a 4th grave, fresh dirt, new headstone. Robert Mercer, Marine, rancher, complicated man, 1937 to 2024. "You buried him next to them," Jack whispered. Alina nodded. They were friends, they should rest together. Jack knelt by Buck's grave, touched the cold granite. "You did good, old man, you did good." Tyler knelt beside him, placed a smooth river stone on the headstone the way he'd seen in a movie once, an offering, a sign of respect. They stood in silence for a long time, 4 graves holding 5 men, Miguel in body and spirit, Dylan in secret and blood, the truth layered like geological strata, but the meaning simple. Good men had stood together, some died, some survived, all suffered, but in the end they'd won. Evil was punished, justice was served, community was healed. That was legacy enough. The work of rebuilding the ranch began in earnest the next week. Jack and Marcus hired 2 local men who needed work, young guys in their 20s, good with their hands, willing to learn. They started with the barn. The old structure was too far gone to save, so they tore it down board by board, salvaged what they could, recycled the old-growth timber for the new barn they'd build on the same foundation. Jack learned by doing, how to frame a wall, how to read a level, how to nail shingles in straight rows that would shed water for decades. His hands, soft when he'd arrived in March, were developing calluses. His back ached at night, but it was a good ache, the ache of honest work. Tyler helped where he could, carrying boards, holding tools, learning the rhythm of construction. The boy had grown 3 inches since arriving in Wyoming. His shoulders were broadening. His voice was starting to change. He was becoming a man in this place where his great-grandfather had become one. Marcus proved to be a natural leader. He'd worked construction in Mexico before returning to Wyoming, knew how to organize a job site, how to keep work moving efficiently, how to teach without condescension. The 2 young workers respected him immediately. Sarah stopped by most evenings after her shift, ostensibly to check on security, but she'd linger, help with dinner, talk about her day. She and Jack were dancing around something neither of them wanted to name yet, both gun-shy from failed marriages, both wary of moving too fast. But Tyler noticed, started finding excuses to give them time alone, would suddenly remember homework or chores. Marcus caught on and helped, creating elaborate reasons why he needed Tyler's help with things that obviously didn't require 2 people. One evening, after Tyler and Marcus had manufactured yet another transparent excuse to leave, Sarah called them on it. "You know they're not subtle, right?" Jack laughed, not even a little. "Tyler's a good kid. He wants you to be happy." "I am happy, happier than I've been in years. But I'm 50 years old, divorced, living in the middle of nowhere trying to figure out how to be a rancher. I'm not exactly a prize catch." Sarah stepped closer. "You're a good father, a good man. You stood up to evil when you could have run. You gave Marcus a chance when you could have rejected him. You're rebuilding something beautiful from ashes and pain. That sounds like a prize to me." They kissed then, tentative at first, then deeper, years of loneliness and hurt melting into something warmer, something that might become love if they gave it time. Tyler and Marcus walked in 10 minutes later, saw them, immediately turned around and walked back out. Jack heard Tyler's voice through the door. "Told you." Marcus's reply, "You owe me $20. Jack and Sarah looked at each other and laughed. Maybe healing didn't have to be complicated. Maybe it could be as simple as finding someone who understood your scars and loved you anyway. The barn took 6 weeks to complete. Modern construction with Wyoming weather in mind. Insulated, wired for electricity, strong enough to stand another 100 years. When they placed the final shingle and stepped back to admire their work, Jack felt a surge of pride unlike anything his insurance job had ever given him. They'd built this, with their own hands, something solid and real and lasting. Marcus suggested they burn the last board from the old barn. Ceremonial, letting go of the past while honoring it. They did it at sunset, the four of them plus Alina who'd driven out for the occasion. Tyler lit the match. The old wood caught quickly, flames dancing in the evening breeze. They watched it burn. Watched 30 years of pain and secrets and guilt turn to ash and smoke and finally, just memory. "Miguel would approve," Alina said softly. "So would Buck," Jack added. The ranch was healing, but more than that it was thriving. They'd bought cattle with Travis's money and Marcus's savings. 30 head to start, enough to be a working ranch again. Jack was learning to care for them, learning to read the weather and the grass and the subtle signs that told you when to move stock and when to let them be. It was hard work, harder than anything he'd done in Chicago, but it fed something in him that desk work never had, the satisfaction of seeing calves grow, of fixing a fence and knowing it would hold, of teaching Tyler to rope and ride and read the land. Tyler's mother Rachel visited in July. Jack had been dreading it, worried she'd see the hard work and the isolation and demand Tyler come back to Chicago, but she surprised him. She arrived on a Saturday morning and found Tyler mending fence with Marcus. The boy was sunburned and dirty and grinning. He saw his mother and ran to her, hugging her with enthusiasm he'd never shown in the city. Rachel held him and looked at Jack over their son's shoulder, mouthed 2 words, "Thank you." They talked that evening after Tyler went to bed, sat on the porch with coffee and watched stars emerge over the mountains. "He's different," Rachel said, "confident, happy. I haven't seen him like this since before the divorce." Wyoming agrees with him. You agree with him. You're present in a way you never were before. Engaged. He talks about you constantly, about the ranch, about Marcus and Sarah, about feeling like he belongs somewhere. Jack didn't know what to say to that. Rachel continued, "I'm not going to fight you on custody anymore. He should stay here, visit me on holidays and summer breaks, but this is his home now. I can see that. You're welcome here anytime. I know, and I'll come, but this is your thing, yours and his. You're building something I could never give him, a legacy, a purpose, real connection to something bigger than ourselves." She left the next morning, hugged Tyler hard and told him to call every week, shook Marcus's hand and thanked him for looking after her boy, kissed Jack's cheek and whispered, "Don't screw this up." Jack watched her drive away and felt the last piece of his old life detach. He was free now, free to build something new, free to be the man and father he'd always wanted to be. August brought the trial of Sheriff Dawson and 3 county officials who'd taken Wade's money. More testimony, more justice, more healing for a community that had lived under corruption's shadow for too long. All four were convicted. All received prison sentences. Sarah was elected sheriff in a landslide, youngest in the state, first woman to hold the position in the county's history. She'd already begun reforming the department, hiring deputies who valued integrity over connections, building trust with communities that had learned to fear the badge. September brought the first real cold snap, frost on the grass, ice on the water troughs. The work shifted to winter preparation, insulating buildings, stockpiling feed, making sure the cattle had shelter for the hard months ahead. One evening in late September, Jack found himself alone in the house. Tyler was spending the night with a friend in town. Marcus was in Billings buying equipment. Sarah was working late on a case. Jack sat at the kitchen table with Buck's journal. He'd read it front to back a dozen times, had added his own entries documenting the trial, the memorial, the rebuilding. Now he turned to a fresh page and began to write what he knew would be the final entry. October 1, 2024. Buck, it's been 7 months since I arrived at your ranch with Tyler and a truck full of broken dreams. 7 months since I found your journal and learned about August 7, 1991. 7 months since Wade Holloway tried to finish what he started 30 years ago. He's in prison now. Life sentence, federal supermax, he'll die there. Justice for Miguel and Tom and Ray, justice for you. The town held a memorial. 300 people. They told stories about you I'd never heard, about kindness you showed when no one was looking, about the man you were before guilt turned you into a ghost. I wish I'd known that man. Wish I'd given you a chance to be my grandfather instead of just a name on holiday cards. But I know you now, through your words, through your choices, through the legacy you left. Tyler is thriving. He's 13 next month, tall and strong and confident, nothing like the withdrawn kid who arrived in March. He talks about becoming a rancher, about raising his own kids here someday, about passing this land down to them. Marcus is my partner now. We rebuilt the barn together, bought cattle. We're making this place work again. He's chosen to be a Cortez, not a Holloway, Miguel's son in every way that matters. Sarah and I are figuring out what we are to each other, taking it slow, but there's something real there, something good. Tyler approves, Marcus approves. I think you would too. Alina forgave you, buried you next to Miguel, said friends should rest together. That's grace I don't fully understand, but I'm grateful for. Travis is trying to atone for his father's sins. He'll carry that burden his whole life, but he's a good man. He proved that. This ranch, this land you died protecting, it's healing. We're healing. All of us damaged by Wade's evil. All of us finding our way back to something like wholeness. You asked me in your letter to finish what you started, to give Miguel and Tom and Ray justice. I did that, but I also found something you maybe didn't intend to give me. I found home, found purpose, found out who I am when the bullshit is stripped away and all that's left is dirt and sky and the work of your hands. I found out I'm your grandson, not in blood only but in spirit, in the stubborn refusal to quit when things get hard, in the belief that land and family and honor matter more than money or comfort or ease. I'm teaching Tyler what you couldn't teach me, but I'm using lessons you left in these pages, in this house, in this land. So thank you for the ranch, for the second chance, for trusting me with something you loved. You can rest now, we've got it from here. Your grandson, Jack Mercer. He closed the journal, sat in the quiet house listening to the wind and the settling sounds of old wood, felt at peace for the first time in years, maybe the first time in his life. Tyler came home the next day full of stories about his friend's place. They had horses. Could Jack and Marcus get horses too? And maybe a dog. Every ranch needed a good dog. Jack said yes to both. They drove to a rescue outside Billings and came home with a border collie mix named Scout. Tyler was in heaven. Scout followed him everywhere, slept at the foot of his bed, learned to help move cattle with an enthusiasm that made up for his lack of training. The horses came a week later, a mare and gelding, gentle enough for beginners but with enough spirit to be interesting. Jack and Tyler learned to ride together. Marcus taught them, patient, encouraging, laughing when they fell and helping them back on. They rode the property together, all 850 acres, learning every draw and hill and creek, naming features, making it theirs. Tyler named a rocky outcrop Sentinel Point because you could see for miles in every direction. Jack named a meadow Alina's Rest because the wildflowers there reminded him of the woman who'd shown them grace. October brought perfect Wyoming weather, cool mornings, warm afternoons, skies so blue they hurt to look at. The aspens turned gold in the mountains. The grass went dormant. The cattle grew thick coats for winter. They established routines, morning chores, fence riding, equipment maintenance, evening meals together, Jack cooking or Marcus or sometimes Sarah joining them and bringing takeout from Alina's. Tyler's homeschooling was going well, better than traditional school had ever gone. He was reading at high school level, doing advanced math, but also learning practical skills, how to weld, how to treat a sick calf, how to read weather patterns and predict snow. One Saturday in late October, Jack declared a work holiday. They saddled the horses and rode to the North Ridge, brought lunch in saddlebags, spent the day just being together, father and son, partner and friend, family by choice and blood and shared struggle. They sat on Sentinel Point eating sandwiches and watching the landscape stretch to distant mountains. Tyler asked the question Jack had been waiting for. "Dad, are we going to stay here forever?" "I don't know about forever, but for as long as we can, as long as you want to, this is home now." "I want to stay. I want to raise my own kids here, want to teach them about great-grandpa Buck and Miguel and what they stood for." Jack felt his throat tighten. "That's a good dream, buddy." "You think I can do it?" "I know you can." They sat in comfortable silence. Scout chased rabbits through sage brush. The horses grazed nearby. The sun tracked across the sky. Tyler spoke again. "I'm glad we came here, even with all the scary stuff. I'm glad." "Me too." "Do you think Mom's mad that we're staying?" "No, I think she's happy you found where you belong." "And Sarah, is she staying too?" Jack smiled. "I think so if we don't mess it up." "I like her. She's good for you, makes you smile." "Yeah, she does." They rode home as the sun set. The ranch appeared below them. The new barn, the house with lights in the windows, smoke from the chimney, cattle in the pastures, a place that lived and breathed and worked. A place worth fighting for. That night Jack stood on the porch like he did most evenings. Tyler joined him. Then Marcus, home from town. Then Sarah, off duty and ready to relax. The four of them. Family assembled from broken pieces. Standing on land soaked in blood and tears, but also hope and courage and stubborn refusal to let evil win. "Next week is November 7th, Marcus said quietly. 33 years since the fire." They were all quiet, thinking about that night, about the men who died and the man who survived and the price they'd all paid. "We should do something," Tyler said, "to remember them." Sarah nodded. "The memorial was good, but something here feels right too. This is where it started, where Buck spent 30 years carrying it." Jack thought about that. We could plant trees, 4 of them, here in the yard where they can be seen, where they'll grow and give shade and outlive all of us." "I like that," Marcus said. "Miguel would like that." They did it the following Saturday. Dug holes, planted saplings, oak trees that would grow slow but strong, that would stand for generations. They didn't speak during the planting, didn't make speeches or say prayers, just worked, honoring the dead the way the dead would have wanted, with sweat and dirt and growing things. When the last tree was planted and watered, they stood back, 4 small trees in a line, barely more than sticks, but alive, reaching toward the sky. In 30 years, they'd be tall. In 60, they'd be giants. Long after Jack and Marcus and Sarah were gone, these trees would stand, silent witnesses to pain transformed into beauty, death becoming life. Tyler was the first to speak. "Which one is which?" Jack pointed. "That one's Miguel, that one's Tom, that one's Ray, and that one's Buck. They're together again." "Yeah, they are." Winter came early that year. Snow in November. Real snow, not just flurries. The ranch transformed into something from a Christmas card. White fields, frosted fences, mountains brilliant against blue sky. The work changed. Feeding cattle, breaking ice on water troughs, keeping roads clear. Hard work, cold work, but satisfying in its own way. They celebrated Thanksgiving at Alina's with half the town. Christmas on the ranch with just the 5 of them. Jack and Tyler and Marcus and Sarah and Alina. Opening presents by the fire. Cooking too much food. Playing cards and telling stories and laughing. Tyler gave Jack a framed photo, the 5 of them standing in front of the new barn, smiling, family. Jack hung it next to the photo of Buck and his 3 friends, past and present, grief and healing, the price paid and the future earned. New Year's came. They watched fireworks in town, stood in the cold with the community, neighbors now, accepted, part of the fabric of this place. January brought brutal cold, -20-some nights, the kind of cold that killed the unprepared, but they were prepared. Livestock in shelter, pipes insulated, wood stacked high. They spent evenings by the fire, reading, talking, planning for spring. Tyler was reading Louis L. Amer now, Western novels that made him dream about the old days. Marcus was teaching him Spanish. Sarah was teaching him to shoot properly. Jack watched his son become a young man in this place and felt something he'd never felt in Chicago. Pride. Real pride. Not in accomplishments or achievements, but in character, in who Tyler was becoming. February brought Valentine's Day. Sarah surprised Jack with a weekend away, just the 2 of them. Left Tyler with Marcus and Alina. They drove to a cabin in the mountains, spent 2 days disconnected from the world. On the last night, sitting by the fire, Sarah asked the question, "What are we doing, Jack?" "What do you mean?" "This, us, are we dating? Are we serious? Where is this going?" Jack took her hand. "I'm 50 years old, divorced, set in my ways. I don't know how to do casual. If we're doing this, I want it to be real. I want it to last." "So do I. I can't promise perfect. I'm still figuring out how to be a good father, still learning how to run a ranch, still carrying baggage from my marriage. I don't want perfect, I want real. I want this. You and me and Tyler and the life we're building." They kissed, made love, fell asleep tangled together. When morning came, they drove back to Red Creek as a couple, official, committed. Tyler saw it in their faces when they walked in, grinned, finally. Marcus shook Jack's hand. "Congratulations, don't mess it up." Alina hugged them both. Miguel would be happy. He always said love is what makes a house a home. March arrived. A year since Jack and Tyler had first driven up that washboard road and seen the ranch in all its abandoned glory. A year since Jack had found Buck's journal and learned about August 7th. A year since everything changed. They marked the anniversary quietly, rode up to Sentinel Point, looked at the ranch spread below, at the new barn and the 4 trees growing in the yard, at the cattle and the fences and the smoke from chimneys, at the life they'd built from inheritance and tragedy and stubborn hope. "We did good," Jack said. "Yeah," Tyler agreed, "we really did." They sat on their horses, father and son, partner and friend, looking at their legacy, not just the land but everything it represented. The choice to stay when running would have been easier. The choice to forgive when bitterness would have been justified. The choice to build when destruction had already taken so much. That evening, Jack opened Buck's journal one final time, added one last line. "We're home, Buck, all of us, finally home." He closed the book, put it on the shelf next to Miguel's photograph and Ray's folding knife and Tom's old spurs, artifacts of men who'd stood for something, who'd paid prices they shouldn't have had to pay, but whose legacy lived on in 4 trees and a rebuilt barn, and a 13-year-old boy who was learning what it meant to be a man of honor. The past was settled, the dead were at rest, the guilty were punished. And Jack Mercer, 50 years old and starting over, stood on his porch watching the sun set over the Powder River Basin with his son beside him and his future stretched out before him like the Wyoming sky. Vast, beautiful, full of possibility. He'd come west looking for a second chance, found instead a reckoning with the past, had faced it, survived it, transformed it into something worth passing on. The Mercer ranch would endure, would pass to Tyler, then to Tyler's children, then to their children, generation after generation, not perfect, not unmarked by tragedy, but earned, fought for, watered with blood and tears and 30 years of guilt finally laid to rest. Jack pulled Tyler close, felt his son lean into him, watched the stars emerge one by one in the deepening sky. Tomorrow they'd work, fix fences and feed cattle and do all the 1,000 tasks that kept a ranch running. Tomorrow Sarah would come for dinner, and Marcus would share news from town and Alina would send tamales she'd made for Tyler. Tomorrow the work would continue, the legacy would grow, the story would go on. But tonight, Jack Mercer was a father standing with his son on their land under their sky, and that was enough. That was everything. The wind shifted, brought the smell of sage and snow and the particular cleanness that only comes at high elevation far from cities and crowds and the old life left behind. In the distance, an owl called. Scout barked once and settled. The cattle lowed quietly in their shelter. And on a kitchen shelf, Buck Mercer's journal sat closed, its pages full, its purpose served, its secrets transformed from poison into medicine. The past had released its grip, the future beckoned, and the present was good. Finally, after 33 years and 7 months, and all the pain between, it was good.